is Rogers TV.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 18 degrees, 17 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. We are learning more about when outdoor activities and patio dining could resume in Ontario. City News reporter Kevin Meisner with the latest.
The Ford government is, of course, more than a little hesitant about reopening this time around after moving to reopen against the advice of the science table in March, leading to that devastating third wave of COVID infection and nearly overwhelming Ontario's healthcare system. What we do know this time around is Ontario is pretty much tossing out that old color-coded system. They plan to introduce a new framework soon. Dr. Peter Uni is chair of the Science Advisory Table.
I think the most important part is that any reopening has a clear distinction between indoor and outdoor spaces.
Now, he's telling City News he would like to see some outdoor activities allowed in the next week or so, including golf, tennis, basketball courts. Now, if the numbers continue their downward trend, Uni says it is possible that schools could reopen for a couple of weeks in June. Even patio dining could be a possibility, returning by the end of June as well. Now, Ontario Medical Officer of Health Dr. David Williams has said that he wants to see consistent day-over-day numbers of infections below 1,000 in Ontario before any kind of reopening. I'm Kevin Meisner.
City News Time, 9:01. Now, Quebec Premier François Legault says next Friday his government will lift the COVID-19 curfew that has been in place across much of the province for about 4 months now. The measure is part of the government's gradual reopening plan. Restaurant patios will be allowed to reopen next Friday for dining as well. Now, the Premier adds if 75% of Quebecers over the age of 12 are fully vaccinated by the end of August, masks will no longer be required in most public places. In India, they have broken the previous record for daily COVID-19 deaths that was set back by the United States in January. The country reported 4,529 deaths today, a number considered to be an undercount by health experts. The number of new daily infections was below 300,000, though, for the third day in a row. City News Time, 9:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Plenty of sunshine for us, a high near 30 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy, 17, and tomorrow, clouds thicken, do have a slight chance of showers or an isolated thunderstorm, the high 28. For today, the high 30.
And right now in Ottawa, 18 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 17. A new report says Ontario's opioid crisis has worsened dramatically during this pandemic. Researchers with the Ontario Drug Policy Research Network say opioid-related deaths are up nearly 80% from February to December 2020. Researcher Tara Gomes says the homeless population and those who are unemployed have been hit particularly hard. She says it is alarming because opioid-related deaths continue to increase unabated. Last year, over 2,400 people died from opioids, a 60% increase from 2019, when there were just over 1,500 opioid-related deaths. City News Time, 9:03. StatsCan says the consumer price index in April was up 3.4%. It cost you that much more in April to live compared with 1 year ago. The agency says the annual pace of inflation was up from 2.2% year over year back in March. And John Gomery, the judge who led the public inquiry that helped sink a federal government, has died at the age of 88, his daughter confirming his death this morning. Gomery was a Quebec Superior Court justice when he was named to head the inquiry into the federal sponsorship scandal back in 2004. Revelations of kickbacks and illegal fundraising ultimately led to the defeat of the once dominant Liberal government. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's got the news and the views.
He's got views on the news.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The hottest day of the year. Hottest day in 9 months. Welcome to the hottest talk radio show in town. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News. Heck of a show coming up for you. We're heavy into politics today. Right after the 9:30 news, you can score your political fix, and there is so much to talk about. Election speculation, right? Election speculation. When are we going to the polls? When's the election? Everyone wants to know. When are we going to the polls? What's the ballot question? What shot, realistically, do the Conservatives have of dethroning the Liberals? I mean, there was a poll this week that suggested a tightening race, but how close is this race? Really? If the Liberals are up by 8 points in Quebec, and if the Liberals are up by 13 points in Ontario, which is what the Abacus data poll suggested this week, isn't that really all it's going to take for the Liberals to just cruise to victory? Maybe even a substantial majority government? I mean, the Liberals are going to sweep through Atlantic Canada, and out west it's a three-way, sometimes four-way race. Trudeau! Can anything stop him? But what else are we going to talk about in politics today? I think we need to talk about what's going on in Quebec. Bill 96 in Quebec, the new language law, and Premier Legault's assertion that Quebec can change the Canadian Constitution. And that's something that has the seal of approval of the sitting prime minister in Ottawa, and he's a Trudeau, no less. I mean, it's all remarkable. What is going on here? You know, I mentioned in one of my daily commentaries, one of the Snow in 60 commentaries this week for City News and Shea 106, that Quebec, it's Legault land, okay? It's Legault land. Francois Legault is the man who can do no wrong. He is immensely popular across the province of Quebec, and he has all the federal politicians in Ottawa. They're just shaking in their boots. They're just dancing to his tune. He is calling the shots. I don't know if the country has ever had such a collection of more weak-kneed federal leaders than it has right now when it comes to pushing back against nationalist sentiment in Quebec. It is really a sad sight to behold. It really is. Weak-kneed. And as well this morning, we might talk a little bit about Doug Ford, Dofo's Mojo. Martin Reg Cohen in Toronto Star this week, he asked the question, and I think it's a question that a lot of watchers of Ontario politics are asking. Is Doug Ford finished? Stick a fork in Ford. Is Doug Ford finished? Well, he's done a round trip. I don't think there's any question about that. Let's face it, he wasn't popular when the pandemic started. And then, like all the other premiers, he had a nice bump in the polls because of his handling of the crisis early on. But a lot of that political capital, it's been spent and then some now, spent on a third wave, spent on paid sick days. Is Doug Ford finished? What does that look like if Doug Ford's finished? Premier Andrea Horwath, she's run 3 times before and has been rejected 3 times. Stephen Del Duca? Premier Stephen Del Duca? Who is Stephen Del Duca? Oh, he's the Liberal leader now. He's the guy driving the minivan. Doug Ford finished? I wouldn't write him off just yet. Yeah, all of that is in the mix during your political fix between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. City Hall. City Hall in focus today on a couple of fronts. Some curious things happening at City Hall these days. Front page, Ottawa Citizen this morning. Okay. I'm very troubled by what I am reading in the newspaper this morning. Headline, Councillors call for probe of LRT leak, it says. Get watchdog, possibly police involved. El-Chantiry says. Councillor Eli El-Chantiry, West Carleton-March Ward. He's going to be on our program this morning, final hour of the program. Fedco passed a motion yesterday to, quote, investigate journalist sources after information in a confidential memo revealing the 9-figure claims related to the Rideau Street sinkhole was leaked to the Citizen. The memo, quote, told council that the city was hours away from filing a lawsuit against the companies that provided insurance for Stage 1 LRT project, end quote. So what do we have here? We have reporters doing their job as reporters. Reporters working sources. Okay? Reporters with information that, from where I sit, is vital to the public and very much in the public interest. It's in a confidential memo, but a reporter gets a copy of the memo. To me, it's a great reporter doing what great reporters do. Working sources, getting information, especially information the city or any level of government isn't all that thrilled about being forthcoming with. I mean, what are we talking about here? We are talking about a $361 million lawsuit. That's your money. City suing its insurance companies after a crater opened up on Rideau Street. You remember that? Just before the President of the United States was supposed to arrive in Ottawa, remember Obama was coming to town. Oh my God, how embarrassing. Look at this sinkhole. Don't drive Obama by the sinkhole. Make sure when he goes to get the cookie, he doesn't see the sinkhole. And the poor guy's van, the locksmith's van. I mean, that van is still down there somewhere, right? In the middle earth of Lower Town, like a time capsule. We're still in court. We're going to court to fight over this. According to the citizens reporting this memo, it's been already flying around City Hall. Almost 50 people had their hands on it. And lo and behold, one of them shared it with a news reporter. Shocking. And now what? The city's going to call the cops? Okay. Maybe the city person shouldn't have leaked it. Whoever that is, maybe someone down at the city might be in hot water. But if this news reporter is asked to, cough up some info, I expect all of the city's news outlets as one voice to tell this city council to take a long walk off a short pier. Sinkhole lawsuits, delayed lawsuits, claims and counterclaims. My gosh, by the time it's all said and done, the legal bill for light rail is going to cost as much as light rail. Oh, and $2.9 million for the Vanier Porsche dealership. We'll get into that too. Passed through Fedco yesterday. Eli El-Chantiry on our show. Well, I mean, he agreed to before my little rant. Maybe he's having second thoughts. Sue Sherring as well from the Ottawa Sun. She had a column in the paper this week about Bob Chiarelli. Bob Chiarelli's getting a lot of media coverage now since he broke the news on the Rob Snow Show that he's thinking about running for mayor. I count 3 newspaper columns on that in just the last week. Randall has one this week in the paper. Randall's on our show tomorrow. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Talk Back Hour today. You know we love doing the Talk Back Hour between 10 and 11 o'clock every morning. Okay. Open line, call-in radio, right out of the old school, and it's going to seem like old school talk radio today. Yes, it is 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I mean, it's like a trip back in time. A different time, a different place, a couple of different places, like Meech Lake, like Charlottetown. This story that is on the front page of the Globe and Mail this morning. Ottawa supports Quebec constitutional change, PM says. Experts dispute the province can unilaterally modify the Constitution to bolster French language. To me, for my money, this is the biggest, most important non-COVID story in the country right now. And I'm worried about it. I'll be honest with you. I'm wondering where it could all head. Think about what Prime Minister Trudeau is saying here, what Premier Legault is trying to do here. Can Quebec Really insert new language into the Canadian Constitution all by itself? Unilaterally, the government of Quebec has never even recognized the legitimacy of the Canadian Constitution. Now it wants to start putting new language into it. And it has 2 thumbs up from the Prime Minister of Canada, and his name is Trudeau. I fear we are playing with fire, ladies and gentlemen. And look, I know it's not a COVID story. I know it can get wonky and academic. It can even devolve into Quebec bashing, which is what I don't want to do. But I have to ask you during the talkback hour what you make of this power move from Premier Legault and his desire to unilaterally change the language of the Canadian Constitution to declare Quebecers as a nation. Not a nation within a united Canada, okay? That's the big difference here that nobody seems to be talking about. 2006 Harper motion. Yes, the Quebecois is a nation within a united Canada. That was the Harper motion, the Federalist cause of 2006. This is very different. This just says Quebecers are a nation and French is our language. End of story. Nothing to do about within a united Canada. Quebecers are a nation, French is our language, end of story. But the history of this file suggests that's never the end of the story. It's only the beginning. And the last time we ventured down this road, we almost lost the country. We're going to talk about it this morning on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people I think know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment, they stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's cornflakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
Fair.
Fun
The Rob Snow Show returns.
on Rogers TV and City News 1011 FM.
And 1310 AM.
The Greyhound is no more. All aboard the Megabus. Colin Emberson is with me on the Rob Snow Show on City News. He is Vice President of Retail for Megabus. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Great pleasure, sir. What is Megabus?
So Megabus is an inner-city bus company. We've been in operation in North America for about 15 years, serving just about 100 cities across the U.S. and Canada. And prior to Megabus, earlier brands or different brands in our company have been serving the Ontario market for over 60 years.
Okay. What is unique about Megabus?
So I think the unique things, a couple things. All of our ticketing is done online. You can find tickets at megabus.com. All of our trips, we use a pricing model similar to airlines or hotels, but what's certainly unique is all of our trips have at least one seat at $1, and prices go up based on demand, based on time of booking, things like that.
Okay.
After that. And another unique piece, certainly with what's going on in the world related to COVID, is we're one of the, if not the only, major intercity carrier in North America that's limited our capacity on our vehicles to 50%, to do what we can to be safe and provide a service that people are confident in, making sure that the seat next to them is empty if they want it to be.
Okay. How's business?
It's been tough. The pandemic certainly has had an impact on demand, but we've been happy, certainly in Canada and pretty much all of our routes in North America, to have been able to provide service throughout the pandemic, especially for those that have essential travel needs where bus might be the only option for them. So we felt it was very important to be there for the folks in the communities we serve that wouldn't have any other options for their essential travel needs throughout the pandemic.
Okay. What are your plans for the Ottawa area?
So, the initial plans and what we announced last week was a new service starting tomorrow, two trips a day in each direction from Ottawa to Kingston, Scarborough, and Toronto, and vice versa. The service will start operating, Thursday to Mondays only, but based on demand and hopefully sooner than later, we see the need to have a daily service, 7 days a week, and hopefully more than two trips. But we felt that's a good starting point, and to get the service out there and to folks who haven't had options for the last year, we're starting the first 5 days. So from tomorrow through Monday, every seat in and out of Ottawa on every trip is completely free.
Free.
Free, yep.
That's a pretty good price.
We certainly think so.
Okay. Who uses Megabus or intercity bus service now?
So I think a couple of the big segments. It's very popular with college students getting to and from school, whether it's back home to see family, on holiday periods, or just to move around to see friends throughout, the region. But it's also, as I kind of mentioned, there's a segment, just trying to get the right words here. Sorry, there is, people, the folks who financially, economically might not have, planes, trains, and even in some cases cars might not be an option for them. So that's a segment we're focused on and making sure that options are there for them.
Okay. Since you announced this, because a lot of people were worried with the departure of Greyhound altogether, like we're gone, we're never coming back, about the future of this service, there were calls for the government to create its own intercity bus service. I would much rather see a private company like yours enter the market and at least give it a test drive, and it appears as though that's what your company is is doing. So what kind of demand has there been for the service since you announced it in the Ottawa area?
This weekend is very busy. Obviously, as we mentioned, the introductory price we have is certainly fueling that. But we're really encouraged. We have hundreds of people. I think even over almost 700 people booked right now just for this weekend alone, even at our 50% capacity. So the demand has been really strong this week, and we're excited to see where it goes. And we feel, obviously, with Toronto and Ottawa on either end of the route, with Scarborough and Kingston in the middle, but Toronto, Ottawa being the two largest cities in the province, and kind of being within that, less than kind of 6-7 hour distance by bus, it's kind of within the sweet spot of population size and duration of trip or length of trip.
Yeah.
That we're certainly excited to see where it goes, even once we get beyond our free introductory fare.
Okay. Where do you get the Megabus in Ottawa? You don't have a bus station. We don't have a bus station, so where do you get it?
So the stop is at the St. Laurent station, adjacent to the St. Laurent Shopping Center.
Yep. Okay. So then you stop at Kingston, you stop in Scarborough, you stop in Toronto, right? 3 stops to make it to Toronto, right?
Correct.
Toronto's final stop. So let's say I need to go beyond Toronto. Let's say I need to go to London, or I need to go to Guelph, or someplace beyond. What other operations do you have in Ontario? Does Megabus operate in other markets in Ontario, or?
We certainly do. So,
yeah. Okay.
If we're talking, kind of in that direction, we serve the, down towards Niagara Falls. So, stops in places like Grimsby, St. Catharines, Fort Erie, obviously Niagara Falls itself. And, in terms of London, Guelph, Kitchener, Cambridge, places like that. Ottawa was Toronto, Ottawa is obviously the first route that we've actually announced and that we're committed to starting tomorrow. But, there's a lot of other cities in Ontario, a lot of other places that we're actively looking at options, seeing what can be done, stop locations, authority, demand, things like that, just kind of go into the decision-making process. But we're looking at other options and don't have any specifics to share now.
But you feel there are opportunities to grow, right?
Yeah, we certainly think there's more, and that's what we're looking at right now.
Okay. Look, I wish you all the best. As I say, a lot of people were on edge with no intercity bus service. A lot of people rely on that service to get from point A to point B, and you're stepping in, you're filling the void. You're going to see if it could actually work. Good luck with it, sir. Very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Appreciate that.
Yep. So again, first trip is tomorrow. Double-decker buses running Thursday through Sunday, beginning tomorrow, for free for the first week of service. The Megabus. This is the Rob Snow Show, your political fix, right after the news on City News.
1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 20 degrees. In Smiths Falls, 21. Here's what's making news this hour. A French court has upheld the decision directing Ottawa professor Hassan Diab to stand trial in a decades-old bombing of a Paris synagogue. The highest court in French judiciary delivered that ruling today. Now, Diab's lawyer, Donald Bain, calls the ruling inexplicable. He says he is considering an appeal to the European Court of Human Rights. French authorities suspected Diab was involved in the 1980 bombing of a Paris synagogue that killed 4 and injured dozens of others, an accusation that he has always denied. A new report says Ontario's opioid crisis has worsened dramatically during the pandemic, and researchers with the Ontario Drug Policy Research Network say opioid-related deaths are up nearly 80% from February to December last year. Researcher Tara Gomes says the homeless population and those unemployed have been particularly hard hit by this fatal opioid overdose pandemic. The annual pace of inflation was up 3.4% in April from a year ago when prices plunged during the pandemic. It's up from 2.2% year over year. That was the increase back in March. Now, the main reason for this spike, gas prices. They shot up a record 62.5% year over year. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
Smokes, I'm just looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is down 27%, $31,000 US on Bitcoin. I have to sell the yacht. There it goes. It's all gone. 9:32. It is time to score your political fix as we welcome to our program today the chair of Summa Strategies, Tim Powers. Good morning, Tim Powers.
I love how you've gone from icon to influencer now, thought leader. I mean, who do you pay to write this stuff?
We've got great writers on the staff here at City News. You bet we do. Cam Holmstrom from Bluesky. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning there. My mattress has never sounded so good all the time.
Well, look, it's great to hear from both of you. There's so much interesting material to get into today. A horse race, recent poll from Abacus Data, Tim's favorite polling firm, suggests a tightening federal race ahead of a possible election call, 34% to 32%. But Tim, how close is it really, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, you want me to talk down my own poll, Rob? Well, I'm here to do that just for you. I mean, I don't know if it's a 19 out of 20 thing.
Well, you got to dig into Coletto's numbers, right? He would be the first to explain it to us if he was here.
Well, I guess the thing to look at, so there is that national number. So it does say 34, 32. Now, the Liberal drop and Conservative gain have been in Atlantic Canada and the Prairies. Interesting in both cases, because in Atlantic Canada, as you know, as we both hail from there, the Liberals always tend to have a strong lead. They still have a 20-point lead, so they can afford to drop a little bit in Atlantic Canada. And in the Prairies, well, they don't really register much anyway.
Right.
What you want to get at in there is the three bigger provinces with all the seats. So in Ontario, they still have a double-digit lead, if I recall correctly.
Yep, about 13 points, I believe it was. Yep.
Yeah, they're leading in Quebec again, and in BC, three-way tie. And as you and Cam both know, BC's kind of been a three-way tie for the last few years. So I'm not. If I'm Justin Trudeau, I'm not worried too much, but I should be concerned enough to recognize there's still volatility out there. I would be worried if I'm Justin Trudeau and Aaron O'Toole's numbers are better. They're not great in that poll.
Right.
And or Ontario and Quebec start to slide.
Okay, so it's one poll. It's a snapshot in time, but it shows a tightening race. But is it close? Cam, what do you think? How close is this race right now?
it's not as close as it needs to be, I think, for the Conservatives to start getting too giddy. The one thing I would take from that, and I think you can chalk it up to what's happened over the last couple of weeks, is that I think the Prime Minister's approval numbers are coming down because of some of the issues that are floating out there, especially what's happened around C10, just things like that. I think I've started to take a little bit of shine off the Prime Minister in that case. So I don't think it's a matter of Mr. O'Toole necessarily doing better as much as the other side coming down to earth a little bit. But I would note that there obviously that poll that came out the other day, there are other polls that have the Tories in the high 20s nationally, with numbers where numbers are starting to move, especially in Alberta, away from them towards people like the People's Alliance or the Maverick Party or things like that, and you're starting to see that slip. And that's where I would worry about Mr. O'Toole, because as I saw somebody point out on Twitter the other day, a very wise observation that back before the merger of the Alliance and the old Progressive Conservatives, that those two parties put together could reliably get about 38% of the vote in every election. And right now we're talking about a poll of 32% and saying that's a good one for the Conservatives. That tells you where things have kind of slipped a little bit, right?
Okay.
What's the real potential of that coalition and where the current leadership is at. So the one thing I will take away from this, though, is that look at where the Bloc is in Quebec. The Bloc is constantly polling right now well under 30% in Quebec. And they're running second place. If that's the case, all of a sudden there's a big chunk of seats that are open. And I wouldn't have guessed this about half a year ago, but the path to a Trudeau majority may be through Quebec.
Through Quebec. How do you view that? The Quebec battle race, because we're gonna talk about that battleground. Yeah.
You're asking me that?
Yeah, Tim. Sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
I think Cam's right. I mean,
I think it explains a lot of what's going on lately,
It depends how effectively, I guess, Blanchette is able to continue to sell himself as Legault's man in Ottawa while having some separation from that. I think Legault is probably the most popular premier in the country. He's been able to pull together all sorts of support. He's been consistently good, at least in public opinion ratings throughout the pandemic. So Blanchette wants to tie himself to that. Trudeau's going to need some of that CAC support if he's going to grow there, and he's going to need the Conservatives to be weak in some of the areas where they're there. I think there's something to that. There's just, I guess the thing we don't know, Rob, and Cam alluded to it in the poll, it's not clear yet what is pulling the numbers down at the moment. Is it an anomaly? There's lots of news stories from the military crisis in the military, the budget, et cetera, that could be there,
C10.
But it's not overly clear. There's a lot of volatility.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the Quebec question, okay? Premier Legault has made his big move here, language and culture with Bill 96. And he's going so far as to say Quebec can unilaterally change the Canadian Constitution. And lo and behold, who agrees? Prime Minister Trudeau. Can you imagine Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau ever agreeing to such a thing? I don't think so. I worry about opening up big cans of worms here. But also, I don't expect, and I haven't heard so far, any pushback from any federal leader in Ottawa. Cam, let me ask you, is Premier Legault this country's most powerful politician? Because he seems to have politicians in Ottawa wrapped around his finger. What do you think here?
I would say he's the most provincial premier at this point, probably the most powerful politician in the country, mostly because no one wants to go against him at this point.
No.
I don't think it's people are wrapped around their finger. I think that all the federal leaders are looking at Quebec and see opportunity and don't want to be on his bad side. And that's interesting. I have to admit, though, it's also kind of a scary prospect because of what's being proposed here. I agree that the French language has issues in Quebec and needs support. You won't catch any argument from me there. Is this the best way to do it? I'm skeptical. I would point out, though, when it comes to the constitutional piece, the Constitution has been amended unilaterally a couple times by Quebec and by Newfoundland when it's come to faith-based schools. So in theory, it can be done. Is this the best way to do it on this with what they're talking about? Let's put it this way. I don't know if René Lévesque would have ever taken a step like this because of how it could look and how it come across. So that alone and the lack of pushback kind of puts my ears up.
Okay, yes. Okay, secularization of the education system is one thing. But to say we are a nation?
No, but
we are a
that's
nation.
My point. That's my point, Rob.
Right.
Is that on a smaller thing, okay, but on a bigger thing like this, like my ears perk up. Like the fact that there's no pushback on this, I find very noteworthy, because you figure somebody would, at the very least, politically would want to be on the other side of this, just to be the only ones on the other side. But nobody is lining up on that, which I find very interesting.
Yeah. What do you think, Tim?
Well, you look at what the last challenge that came out of Quebec, and that was, of course, around religious symbols. All of the federal leaders of the day were, and the Conservatives and Democrats and Liberals were like eunuchs. They just folded like cheap
folded. Bill 21.
So why would we
Bill
expect
21.
them to do anything else here right now? And that's terribly unfortunate. They're all afraid. I think Cam's nailed it, of the political power of Legault, and they know the country right now, coming out of a pandemic, is not in the mood for a constitutional battle, because we still remember what they're like. So it's an appalling lack of federal leadership, really, from all three federal parties.
How do you explain his popularity? It's not like Quebec's response. They had a better vaccine program than Ontario and some other provinces, but it's not as though the initial response to the pandemic or the horrors of long-term care. It's not as though the government's handling of the pandemic crisis was superb by any measure. It wasn't. More than 11,000 people died in the province of Quebec. It's almost half of the country's death toll is in one province, the province of Quebec. And yet, while we have seen the popularity of premiers rise and then fall, Premier Legault seems to just have a command of that province. It's really quite something to watch. What do you think is his appeal, Cam? What do you think is going on there?
Part of it, I think, is that he has used the cultural issues to burnish his credentials. Mm-hmm. I think part of it has been a general shift away from the whole argument of sovereignty versus federalism to more culture versus more towards culture. But also part of it, too, I think, is also a function of not having a very strong opposition. You know, who is the counterbalance in Quebec to be able to point to it? The Bloc Québec, the Parti Québécois is a shell of its former self. You look at the Liberals, their leadership situation isn't exactly great when you look at who's trying to pull from it. Then you've got even like Québec Solidaire, who's kind of further on that left side. You know, they probably have the next most popular leader in the country, but again, they're a third or fourth place party and way off in the distance. So there's no one to actually push him at this point. There's no one naturally to actually challenge him, and I think that can be dangerous. You know, I have to admit, the fact that he's now used the notwithstanding clause, something which no one wanted to touch for decades because of what it meant. He's now used it once on 21, and now he's going to use it again multiple times in this proposal. That scares the daylights out of me, because he's now gone somewhere once, and now he feels, okay, I can do it again and again. He grabbed Pandora's box and ripped the top off, and I think that, and the irony is that, there's no one strong enough in the province to actually go to him and say, no, this isn't a good idea. Yeah,
weak opposition in the province and weak need in Ottawa.
But also, you know what? I think all of that's right, but I think also his public opinion support and comfort has grown because he, whether we like it or not, he comes across as authentic. And I think in this crisis that we've been in, there's been such a lack of authenticity, and the way he speaks, like you talk about successful politicians, his command of language, both in English and French, to hit his audiences is exceptionally strong. And I think that is a huge factor in why he's so popular. People will say, I know where Legault stands. I may not like him, but I'll know where he stands. And I think that has helped him immeasurably here.
Well, but I think another thing to go with this as well is that when you talk about the death toll in Quebec, a lot of that came very early on, the pandemic. Exactly. I think that's the other thing, too. Whereas other premiers haven't learned mistakes and have repeated them, Legault, I think, has learned mistakes and adjusted and actually been more coherent and clear in his actual communication of their fight against COVID. So I think that's actually made people feel better, because no one's expecting perfection, but I think he's actually shown to have grown and learned in the response to the pandemic, which I think has helped his numbers.
Okay, so about an hour ago, we received news on the passing of John Gomery, who led the Gomery Commission, of course, sank the Liberals, the Paul Martin Liberals. Tim, when you think back to, you hear that name, Gomery, what do you think about?
Well, Rob, I certainly remember you and I in another place doing a lot of talking about the Gomery inquiry in the early 2000s. I mean, you know what I remember from that inquiry is the Chrétien with the golf balls.
Golf balls.
And remember how emblematic that was of the time. I think Gomery, I think you're right. His report in the end was undid the Liberal government. They did it by their own behavior. But that's what I remember of John Gomery.
Yeah. You have that, David? Play that, okay?
All right, come back to these golf balls then that are in the photograph. You said you got golf balls from others.
Yep.
Who did you get them from, Mr. Chrétien?
Oh.
And do you have some examples?
Yes. I have a ball here.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, that's
with the seal of the President of the United States and signed by a Texan by the name of George Bush.
All right, what other ones?
That's what I think about, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Cam, on John Gomery.
Obviously, he created a defining moment in our political culture because it was that inquiry that eventually brought down that Liberal government and frankly stained the Liberals for a generation. What I find interesting, putting into the current context, is that in the wake of Gomery, the Liberals had a chance to really kind of be the phoenix from the ashes, as it were, leave that behind, become clean. And frankly, I always argued that. I argued it 15 years ago, the best placed person to do it was someone with no attachment to those times, and that was Justin Trudeau. And ironically, he's found himself the subject of 3 ethics commissioner investigations.
Right.
His finance minister has been former finance minister had 2 and found wanting. We see this over and over again. So it's like the lesson was taught, and you were given the opportunity to kind of repent and to do better. And instead, here we are 15 years later, right back in the same spot. I think that's, to me, is the interesting thing about that idea of not taking opportunity when it's presented.
Yeah. Great take. We'll be right back. Part 2 of your political fix on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It started out with a small outdoor booth in what was called Artist Alley, which is actually the area just outside our store on William Street, where for a couple of years we sold our jewelry directly on the street. And then we slowly evolved to having an indoor location in this building, 55 Borrowed Market Square. We then moved to another location in Place de Ville, and then moved back down here on Dalhousie Street at Irrigere in the 90s, and then back into this building again in 2000 as a collection. I do a collection of jewelry called Cirque that's mainly beaded work with a combination of semi-precious and vintage beads. And then she does a hat collection called Fanfreluche that's all cut and sewn hats in a variety of fabrics and for all of the seasons of the year. We've curated and sourced the artisans that we represent in a lot of different ways over the years since it's been, since 1985. Some people come to us since we're known, and other artisans that we represent might recommend that they come and see us. Some people we find at craft shows, or we see their work, somebody wears it in, and we go and track it down and bring it. And then some people, interestingly, are with us in one medium, and then sometimes they evolve to another. They're all Canadian and mainly local. With the roughly 50 people that we have, I'd say more than half of those are Ottawa-Gatineau, and then the rest are from other cities in Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. If you can afford it, go to a small business and spend some money. It's lovely when you come in and, give me a pep talk and tell me how much you love this place and you've been coming here for years. But if you can afford it, please spend some money too, because all the pep talks in the world are not going to pay my rent, which is still full rent even when we're closed. Then secondly, if you can't afford to spend money, follow the businesses that you want to support on social media. Go to their Instagram, go to their Facebook, follow their Twitter, and then retweet, share their Facebook page, like and comment. Because if you can't afford to, as many of us can't right now, to do extra expenditures, doing all of those little things like that will raise the visibility of those small businesses and hopefully for them result in some online or curbside or other business for them.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, we're back with your political fix. From Summa, Tim Powers is here. From Bluesky, Cam Holmstrom. Let's talk about Dofo's mojo, okay? I know, I like that too. Doug Ford and his mojo. In a recent Toronto Star column, Martin Ridge Cohen asks, is Doug Ford finished? How would you answer that question, Cam Holmstrom? Is Doug Ford finished?
I never say never, just because I've lived through too many things to totally discount it. But it's hard to have lost your mojo, get it back, lose it again, and get it back again. And that's kind of where he's at right now. Because we have to remember, before we went to the pandemic, Doug Ford was in a very bad spot in the polls. His personal approval was dirt low, and COVID actually helped him bounce back from very popular. Now that he's lost it again, it's hard to pull off the same trick twice. But I'm not going to say it won't happen, because there's a long year to go before the next provincial election, and I've seen stranger things happen.
Okay, so not finished. Don't count him out just yet.
I never count anyone out.
Okay, very quickly, I want your take, Cam, on, he's measured against his opposition, right? What do you think of the opposition right now in Ontario and how strong or weak they are?
Well, to be honest, obviously I feel quite high on Andrea Horwath. I always have.
Yeah.
And Stephen Del Duke, I think it's going to be interesting because he doesn't get the exposure at Queen's Park because he's not there. He's not in the chamber. And obviously he wears baggage from the Wynne years. So the question is, how willing are people to forgive and forget about that time? But I think that's the interesting thing about this. I think that the Premier Ford has brought so much baggage onto himself in this term that I don't think it's not so much a matter, do I like you or the other guy? It's more of, you know what, this guy hasn't been that good. Do I trust you enough to do it? And I think that's lowered the bar for the comparison for the other leaders.
Okay.
And that can only help them.
All right. Okay. Kind of a governments defeat themselves kind of thing, Cam.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Tim, what do you think? For Doug Ford, is Doug Ford finished? Finished.
Well, he's
Stick a fork in Ford.
He's kind of kissing the curb at the moment, Rob, but you and I have kissed the curb before. You can get
sure
up
thing.
again.
Yeah.
Again, like Cam, been around too long to say that he's dead, but he's got a big climb back. He now almost needs Doug Ford 3.0. He's had a couple of remakes. He's going to need another remake. I think the next couple of months are going to be important. You've seen they've embraced a new strategy of keeping Ford out of the limelight and letting others wear whatever pandemic decisions they're involved in. That's probably a good thing. So I think he can still win. I think he has a lot of hardcore support in different areas. That isn't about to abandon him yet, but it's going to be tough. I think the question on the opposition leaders is an interesting one. Ms. Horwath has had a few kicks at the can. So far, Ontarians haven't seemingly liked to consider her as a premier. They like her as an opposition leader.
Yeah.
Is she going to be fortunate this time if she goes back to the polls? And I think Cam would know better, but I get a sense that's a debate in NDP circles. I think Mr. Del Duca is benefiting from people's anger at Ford, but I don't think he's truly benefiting yet. Governments can and do defeat themselves, but I think Mr. Del Duca is going to get a hell of a lot of scrutiny. The ties to the Wynne era are all going to come forward when this election really kicks in gear. So I wouldn't take today's polls in Ontario as a certainty that Doug Ford's time as premier is done.
Okay. Look, we have about 3 minutes left. Okay. So we're all kind of small town guys here. Cam you're from Kenora, right, Cam?
That's right.
That's right.
God bless Kenora. I like Kenora.
Kenora, okay. Tim's a Newfoundlander, of course. I'm a Cape Bretoner. This whole idea of, people fleeing the city, the statistics say between July 2019, July 2020, 50,000 people left Toronto, 30,000 people left Montreal, moved to small towns and villages. I wonder if there could be political implications here. For example, could some small town or rural, say, conservative ridings become more fertile territory for liberals or other progressive parties? Do you think this could have some political ramifications? What's been happening as people flee the city, Cam?
I absolutely think it can.
Okay.
Because not only because of who's voting in those areas, but I think also changes the issues on the ground. I'll give you the prime example where I live down in Brockville now. And we've seen this, in our area, I've seen the third highest jump in housing prices year over year in this past year. I bought my home I'm living in now in November 2019, just before the pandemic. We paid about $300,000 for it. It's literally a house sold 5 houses down the block from us, a very similar home, a little nicer, but very similar. It sold 2 months ago for $630,000. I'd like to think that my home is worth that, or worth that kind of money, but it's not. But that's having a knock-on effect all of a sudden of people, all of a sudden not only housing prices going through the roofs, making it harder for local people to buy, but also rental stocks going away. So the cost of living is going up. Cost of living was not as big an issue in this area as it was before. But now you're seeing that kind of spread out into these rural areas. And all of a sudden, I think that could change some of the discourse and discussion that happens politically.
Interesting.
That could benefit certain parties over others.
Okay.
So
Tim?
now we know, Rob, the reason that Brock Vegas is really Brock Vegas, it's because Cam
lives there. That's right.
Real estate next.
And his collection of snowmobiles. That's what's going on there. People like the vintage snowmobiles.
Celine Dion be singing down there. I mean, it's all destined to happen. I can see it. Cam, the residents of Brock will go after Cam if you're not happy. He's a good man. I think it's not happening fast enough, but in maybe 5 years, if this trend continues, for certain it can influence politics, because it does get to cost, it does get to opportunity, it does get to a shifting workforce, and and what values that workforce brings to it, and what they implant in their communities. I think it's great for us in Atlantic Canada, Rob. I mean, we've had struggled with immigration for years. If we can get, you and I might have trouble not buying a home at a reasonable price, but hey, if we
there goes our retirement dreams, Tim. There goes our retirement dreams of a nice seaside property in Atlantic Canada. They're all gone now.
We'll be like the two guys in the Muppets in the balcony, and we'll get a nice condo. And
I hate to say it, we're already them. We got to go. Thank you to both of you. Bye-bye. That is your political fix. Cam Holmstrom and Tim Powers. Talkback Hour. Coming up next, it's going to be like a trip back in time, folks, back to the late 80s, 90s, Meech Lake, Charlottetown. Here we go again. Quebec, federalism, and the Constitution. Are you ready for it? Let's talk about it on the Talkback Hour on City News.
City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 20 degrees, 21 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. We have breaking news this morning from France, where the highest court in that country has ordered Ottawa sociology professor Hassan Diab to stand trial in the 1980 bombing of a Paris synagogue that killed 4. Now, Diab's lawyer is Donald Bain. He calls that ruling from the court inexplicable, considering an appeal now to the European Court of Human Rights. Diab was arrested by the RCMP in November of 2008 in response to a request by France. He's always denied any involvement in the bombing. This past January, France's Court of Appeal overturned a lower court decision that set the 67-year-old free due to a lack of evidence. His lawyer, Bain, says there is clear evidence showing Diab is innocent. City News Time, 10:01. The province just releasing its daily COVID-19 case numbers, 1,588 new cases in Ontario. Of that number, 105 are in Ottawa. There are 14 more cases in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 4 more in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 5 in Renfrew. We're also hearing that the number of tests done, just over 38,000 with a positivity rate of 5.2%. The province is also reporting 19 more deaths. Now the province is reporting strong compliance with public health rules during the ongoing workplace inspection blitz. Provincial inspectors are in the second week of targeting manufacturing, food processing, and distribution centres in the Greater Toronto area. The Labour Minister says 15% of 700 sites inspected did require a follow-up visit. Inspectors are aiming to visit 1,500 workplaces just by the end of next week. City News Time, 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Plenty of sunshine for us, a high near 30 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy, 17, and tomorrow, clouds thicken, do have a slight chance of showers or an isolated thunderstorm, the high 28. For today, the high 30.
And right now in Ottawa, 20, in Smiths Falls, 21 degrees. The inflation rate in our region up 4.1% in April over 1 year ago. The increase mirrored the national number, which rose to its highest level in nearly a decade. And the big reason we're hearing is gasoline price increase.
The annual pace of inflation rose to 3.4% last month, up from 2.2% in March. Statistics Canada reports April's reading was the highest since May 2011. Gasoline prices shot up a record 62.5% on a year-over-year basis. If you factored them out, Statistics Canada says annual inflation for April would have clocked in at 1.9%. Don Kelly, The Canadian Press.
City News Time, 10:03. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is pursuing forceful deterrence against Gaza's Hamas rulers and does not rule out further escalation. Israel has carried out hundreds of airstrikes against what it says are militant targets in Gaza. Hamas and other militants have fired more than 3,700 rockets at Israel. Netanyahu says Israel is not looking to start a war.
We didn't seek this conflict.
We didn't seek this conflict, is what he said. Netanyahu says Israel hopes to restore quiet quickly. We are also learning, according to Lebanese security officials, several rockets were fired from South Lebanon toward Israel. Israel now confirming 6 rockets were fired from Lebanon. They apparently fell short of the border fence. The military says it responded with artillery fire. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Should the government of Quebec be allowed to change the Canadian Constitution unilaterally? All by itself. Declare Quebecers are a nation. And French is the official language and the common language of Quebec. And put that in the Canadian Constitution. Look, I know it's not a COVID story. Okay, I get that. And we're all wrapped up in the pandemic, and we're all wrapped up into COVID-19 and, vaccinations and doses and second doses. I understand that. And that story, I've been doing that story for almost a year and a half on a daily basis. Okay? And when it comes to federalism and talk of the Canadian Constitution, yes, it can get wonky. And yes, it can get academic. This topic might go nowhere, okay? I might drop it after 5 minutes if I don't get any response. But yesterday, the Prime Minister of Canada said Quebec can change the Constitution of Canada, and Quebec can do that all by itself. Quebec can do that all by itself and say, okay, we the Francophones of Quebec, the Quebecois, we're a nation. Now, that in and of itself is not even controversial, okay? As long as it is, we're a nation within a united Canada, which is what the Stephen Harper motion was. The Federalist motion in 2006 was, we are a nation within a united Canada. Not, we're a nation. We're a nation. Stop there. No, we're a nation within a united Canada. That was the 2006. That was the framing of it within 2006. That's what made the Bloc so upset about it. And we're going to play a clip of Stephen Harper a little later, but we're not going to play it right now, David. Hold on. What Mr. Legault wants to do, insert into the Canadian Constitution, the government of Quebec into the Canadian Constitution, is because we're a nation and French is our language. Are you really okay with that? Because I don't know if I'm really okay with that. I'll tell you what has me worked up about this. It's like distinct society all over again. It's is this the road we're headed down? It's Meech Lake all over again. It's Charlottetown all over again. I fear that we have a prime minister who is about to open up a big can of worms. And we're headed for another round of navel-gazing and belly-aching on the Quebec issue. Do we really want to go there again? Do we really? This is the stuff that almost tore the country apart. We almost lost Canada over this. I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to live through another night like I did in 1995, wondering if I was going to wake up the next morning in a united Canada. It's all over the news today. I'm like I said, it's not a COVID story, but that doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be talking about it. It doesn't mean we should just ignore it. I think it means we need to pick it apart. We need to pick it apart. Front page, Globe and Mail. This is the Canadian Press story on it this morning. Headline, Quebec can modify part of the Canadian Constitution unilaterally, Trudeau says. I hate that when they put that down. Trudeau says. Well, honest to God, Trudeau says a lot of things that turn out not to be true. The Globe and Mail story is false. 3 small deficits, then a balanced budget. The budget will balance itself. The Egacon is a close family friend, known him for years. The election will be the last election or the first past the post. I could go on and on, right? Trudeau says. But this is the Canadian Press, Dateline Montreal. Quote, Quebec can unilaterally modify part of the Canadian Constitution, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Tuesday. The province's proposed language law reform introduced last week seeks to change part of the Canadian Constitution to affirm that Quebec is a nation and that its official language is French. Trudeau told reporters that the federal government's initial analysis has concluded Quebec can make the changes. He said Quebec can alter the Constitution to emphasize that it is a nation and that its official language is French, adding that both have already been recognized by the federal government. Well, not quite, because in 2006, yes, the Harper government, along with the Federalist side, the other parties, the New Democrats, the Liberals, said the Quebecois is a nation within a united Canada. That's not what this says. Quote, Quebec Premier François Legault said he was pleased by Trudeau's comments. Oh, I bet he is. I bet he is. I bet he is. Mark in Ottawa, you're on City News. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, thanks. This is driving me crazy. This stuff has been going on for just too long. When Harper gave in with the Meech Lake, I was so opposed to it. I remember that vote, for a distinct society. Is Newfoundland not more distinct? I have no idea.
Okay.
This is just wrong. Like they're not playing by the rules.
They're not playing by the rules. So this idea that the province of Quebec can unilaterally change the Constitution, what's your opinion on that? I bet you're not impressed. By the sounds of things, you're not impressed with that.
Of course not.
Of course
because,
not. Yeah.
If Trudeau signs something at Senior with the Queen in a windy day there in front of Parliament Hill, and then they agree to it with Quebec after Meech Lake, then that's it. You have to go through constitutional law to get this done. And it reminds me of now Bill C-10.
Oh, the internet bill, yes.
Well, of course, because, this is all for, I don't want to be bashing Quebec because, squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Sure, yeah.
But
a lot of the reason there is so much momentum behind Bill C-10 is because of the demands from the cultural industry in the province of Quebec. That it's the defense of the Quebec culture, and that's why we need internet regulation in Canada to defend Quebec culture.
Which is going to culture on both points.
Yeah.
Which is where is this going? It's got to stop. Like we got to put a stop to this.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Okay. Good to hear your concern. Yeah, Mr. Legault is pleased with the Prime Minister's comments. Well, I bet you a lot of other premiers are probably pleased with that too. But maybe they can just write whatever the heck they want into the Constitution. Maybe they'll move to unilaterally change the language of the Constitution to suit whatever happens to meet their fancy. You have to think big picture here, ladies and gentlemen. Giant can of worms. Quebec is a nation. Quebec is a nation. It doesn't say within a united Canada. Just Quebecers are a nation, and French is our language. At least when Harper was prime minister, it included within a united Canada back in 2006. The language in the Legault proposal of Bill 96 says nothing about a united Canada. It just says, if it's allowed at all, okay, that's debatable. Ignore what Mr. Trudeau says. He says a lot of things. It says, Quebecers form a nation. French shall be the only official language of Quebec. It is also the common language of the Quebec nation. Quebecers form a nation. Quebecers form a nation. Their nation. Welcome to the national unity crisis, the next chapter. We are playing with fire here. Dave in Ottawa, you're on City News. Good morning, Dave.
Thanks for putting this on the table, Rob. It's extremely important, and it needs to be discussed.
Appreciate it.
Now, first of all, the other previous fellow mentioned Newfoundland, and so I think that Newfoundland should have some wording in the Constitution changed, and instead of saying, we all hereby agree, we should change that to yes by.
Okay, all right. Yes.
I mean, if they can do it, so can we, right? Yeah. Okay, let's get serious, all right?
Yeah.
Trudeau, when he was first elected, not in as many words, but in as much said that he is more of a Quebecer than a Canadian. He's on record as having said that.
Yeah.
So we know where he's going. The NDP has been the Trudeau lapdog ever since he's got elected.
Yes.
And they're going to go with whatever he says.
Well, you know what? When it comes to pushing back against any kind of nationalism in the province of Quebec, there's no leadership in Ottawa.
No.
None.
Not with the Liberals, especially.
The Liberals, New Democrats, Conservatives, they're all MIA, sir. Mr. Legault has them running scared. He has them running scared.
Well, we shouldn't be. I said many years ago, Rob, before we build another national museum or a National Archives or a Canadian Forces Base before we spend another dime over there putting our national treasures over there. I want to know where the heck they stand. And if they don't stand with us, we're not spending another frickin' dime.
Okay, all right, Dave. Calm down, Dave. Calm down. Calm down. All right. No, I love the passion. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Everyone's got their own little dreams. I want to write the next novel. I want to write a screenplay, which I still want to do. So owning my own business is something I've always in the back of your mind. Oh yeah, that'd be really cool to try and do. I end up lost my job that I had for 20 years, and I found myself with nothing. Trying to figure out what am I going to do now. I'm mid-40s, and I got a lot of different experience, mainly in retail. So I figured, you know what, let's try to give this a go. I didn't really have any money. I started up with the little website. We went with that, and then it's kind of just grown from there. I have such a passion for this. It's not even work for me. This is a hobby that I get to, thankfully make a living off of. When you walk in, you're going to be overwhelmed, I think, with all the amount of licensed product that we have. I only sell licensed product. I don't sell anything no name or anything. Everything is 100% officially licensed, depending on the franchise. So I like to support a lot of different franchises, a lot of pop culture. So I do have a little bit of music, vinyl, Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Doctor Who, Game of Thrones, you name it. There's probably something around, or if I don't have it, you let me know, and I'll do whatever I can to, try and find it for you. I do some comic books. A lot of the interesting things that I do are items that you just don't find anywhere else. I probably have the best selection of pop culture cookbooks. So cookbooks from Walking Dead and Downton Abbey and Orange is the New Black, Hannibal, Marvel, Wonder Woman. I've got the best selection of Star Trek ships in the city. Well, actually, I've got the best selection in the country. I'm the only retailer in Canada that deals directly with the company Eagle Moss. I've got the best variety of Pop Funko figures within the city. I got the best prices, hands down. Even some of my action figures that I sell that are available at Walmart and Toys R Us, I'm cheaper than them, which is a lot of times you don't realize it. So even that small business can offer you a great value.
Talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Should the province of Quebec be allowed to change the Canadian Constitution unilaterally, all by itself, declare Quebecers a nation? Not a nation within the United Canada, just we're a nation. French is the official language, and French is the common language of Quebecers. Change the Canadian Constitution. I mean, is Canada a real country or not? Is Canada a country in name only? We're going to have a scenario where you just unilaterally, various regions or groups within regions can unilaterally declare nationhood. Just stick it right in the Canadian Constitution. See, Pierre Trudeau, the father, Pierre Trudeau, believed in a very strong federal government. And I don't think, when you listen to this old clip with Barbara Frum, I don't think he ever would have accepted anything like this.
I don't think we need special powers in Quebec. I'm as good as you are, Barbara. I'm as good as any English-speaking Canadian from any province. And I believe most Canadian young businessmen, artists, writers, performers, sportsmen, they think they're as good as anyone. Who needs special powers? The politicians. They're the ones who want special powers naturally because they're in the power game. And what they can get from Ottawa, they will have more in Charlottetown, in Quebec City, in Victoria, BC. That's the game of politics, power. But you don't need to live in an Ontario with special power to protect you. You have a Charter of Rights which protects you. You say you're as good as anyone else under the Charter. Women, men, black, white, Catholic, Jewish, Protestant, they're all equal under the Charter. Now, what about these politicians saying, well, we need special powers? I don't need politicians with special powers to protect me because I'm no weaker than you are, and I don't need to be more protected than you are.
So then Barbara Frum says, well, because this is a great open wound of Confederation, this idea that Quebec has never really recognized our Constitution and the repatriation of the Constitution. And she says, well, you're leaving Quebec out. It's unreconciled.
Would you leave Quebec out long term?
It's not out, Barbara. Don't use that silly word.
Would you leave them unreconciled? Would you leave them unreconciled?
Mr. Peckford's unreconciled because he wants jurisdiction over fish. Why have you left him unreconciled? Why have you left the Premier of Alberta unreconciled, who wants a Triple E Senate? Premiers are always going to be unreconciled. They'll always be asking for more. And the job of the Prime Minister of Canada is to say, yes on this, but I'll trade something for you. If you want to take the notwithstanding clause out of the Charter, well, I'll maybe give you a little more power, this, that. But that's what Constitution is about. That's what a balanced federation is. A Prime Minister of Canada who speaks for the whole Canada, and premiers who speak for one province. And it's bargaining between them, but not giving them everything they ask because they say they're not reconciled.
So to the CBC, I'm using that under fair dealing, okay? Don't sue me. This is about news commentary and historical perspective about where we are in the state of federalism. I know it can be arcane stuff. And maybe a lot of people, you don't have the stomach for it right now. You have other things on your mind, pandemic, vaccinated, second dose of vaccine, booking vaccine appointments. Part of me thinks that's why all of this is happening now. Our minds are elsewhere. It's just like C10. You make your bold move now. People aren't even paying attention to what's going on beyond getting a dose of vaccine in their arms. And isn't it working with C10? And now look at this, the very fabric of federalism in this country. Joanne in Orleans, good morning.
Good morning. You nailed it right there. And I really believe this whole vaccine failure, which lays at the feet of Trudeau, that's what needs a great reset. And he has just lobbed a hand grenade into what is normally a peaceful situation, a peaceful relationship with Quebec. It's contentious. It's always walking on eggshells. They have far more power than they should in this confederation. But he has just lobbed this hand grenade in there. And I agree with you 1,000%. There's a lot that's going on right now under the Trudeau leadership, under the cover of COVID. And this is going to be one of them. Most people aren't going to pay attention. But it's all for votes. He's whoring himself at great peril of the nation. And the last time we spoke, I mentioned what I thought the Conservative platform should be. And unfortunately, one of it is green energy and the Conservative plan. But I also thought there
where are they on this?
Well, that's what
right?
I mean. There should be housing help, health care funding. But it doesn't mean that the Conservative platform should stick to three things. Energy self-sufficiency has now been, again, screamingly obvious. And part of that means a pipeline across the nation. Now, how is the Conservative government going to engage any of the parties in this if suddenly Quebec is asserted as an autonomous place? It's not part of a confederation. It has way more power in self-determination than any other province does.
Yeah.
So we need energy self-sufficiency. It's been proven vital with what's been happening in the U.S., both within their borders and our border with Line 5. Instead, we're going to be talking about this nonsense and sort of asserting that Quebec can say, thumb its nose to the other 9 provinces and territories, all for votes, and this weakness on O'Toole's part of not standing up. I don't know that he could win it, to be perfectly honest, the way the media would frame the conversation, especially the French media. You know, if he pronounces himself that Quebec is not a nation with the nuance of within a united Canada, if he tries to push back on this, he's just going to be painted as anti-French.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's a win-win for Trudeau. But what bothers me is that Liberals aren't going to care. They're just going to care that, oh, he'll carry the province with this, or, oh, he'll distract the nation.
This is the key to our majority. Here, we've just won the country. Yeah, but in the long term, what damage are you doing to the unity of the country? I mean, gosh, thank you, Joanne. We're almost out of time here. It is, ladies and gentlemen, it is the audacity of it all. Okay? And sadly, to Joanne's point, it's probably going to move forward without so much as a whimper of dissent from any federal leader in Ottawa, no matter your political stripe, whether you're red, you're blue, you're orange, you're green, whatever. Because Premier Legault has them all shaken in their boots. If the Federalists wouldn't speak out, and they didn't, if they wouldn't speak out against Bill 21, the secularism bill in the province of Quebec, can you really expect much pushback on this one? I wouldn't put money on it. So look, we've reached halftime. I wanted to set the table on that topic. I'm glad you're interested. I do have a phone line. We have reached halftime on the Talkback Hour Rob Snow Show. This is City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 23 degrees. And here's what's making news this hour. 19 more deaths in Ontario in the past day from COVID-19. The province says there were also 1,588 new cases of COVID province-wide. 105 of those cases were in Ottawa. In the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, an additional 14. 4 more cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 5 new cases in Renfrew. Legal saga for university professor in Ottawa has resumed. The French top court has ruled Hassan Diab must stand trial for the 1980 synagogue bombing in Paris. The Carleton professor learned in January France's Court of Appeal had overturned a lower court decision that had set the 67-year-old free due to a lack of evidence. Now, his lawyer says the evidence is clear, and Donald Bain says this latest decision is inexplicable. There is no evidence against his client. The inflation rate in our region up 4.1% in April over last April. Nationally, the rate jumped 3.4%. That was mainly due to a spike in gasoline prices that began last month. Parliament's budget watchdog says the NDP plan to cut student debt would cost about $4 billion. The NDP pledge this spring promised to cancel up to $20,000 in tuition, freeze loan payments through July 2022, and scrap interest payments, among other measures. The report released today, the parliamentary budget officer Yves Giroux says the proposal would cost $3.95 billion over a 5-year period. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Should Quebec be allowed to change the Canadian Constitution unilaterally, all by itself, declare Quebecers are a nation? French is the official language, the common language of Quebec. I know it's not a COVID story, okay? And, it can be a little wonky, but Quebec says, we have the authority, we're going to change the Constitution of Canada all by ourselves. And Mr. Trudeau says, go for it. Go for it. Our reading of it is you can. It's like someone has fired up the flux capacitor, and it's me and Marty and Doc, and we're all the way back in 1990 again, and Quebecers are a nation, and Quebecers are a nation, and you have to think about this, okay? If the Quebecers say we're a nation, why end there? Why stop there? I mean, these are the battles of 30 years ago. I mean, Quebec is, sure, it's legally bound by the Canadian Constitution. Supreme Court has said that already, but it has never formally recognized our Constitution. Now this, we don't view that Constitution as legitimate, but we would like to change it. If you could throw a couple of lines in there for us. Galling. And our prime minister, whose father fought, against this kind of thing, because he thought it weakened federal power, it gave too much authority to provinces. He says, yeah, go ahead. I do sometimes wonder what world the prime minister lives in, with all due respect. I don't know if he's seeing the big picture. Quebecers are a nation, fine and dandy. What about the Newfoundlanders? Oh, Rob, come on. No, what about Newfoundlanders? Can they unilaterally declare nationhood? I defy you to go and spend a week in Newfoundland and not come to the conclusion that you are in a distinct society. You are far removed from Ottawa. You are immersed in a culture all its own. What about Alberta? Okay, here's one for you. If Quebec can say, we are a nation, French is our language, what stops, say, the Jason Kenney government from saying, hey, you know what? We're a nation too, and English is our language, and we're not going to have anything to do with bilingualism anymore or multiculturalism anymore. Alberta wouldn't do that. But I suppose, hey, if Quebec can do it, what about Indigenous people in Canada? Surely, if anyone could declare nationhood, it's Indigenous peoples in Canada, and I would suggest more than one nation, many nations, with many languages. Are the Algonquin a nation? What about the Métis? What about the Innu? 500,000 people in Canada identify as Métis? See, I'm talking can of worms here, playing with fire. Sure, it starts. Quebecers are a nation. French is our language. Fine. Do you really think it's going to end there? It would end there? It becomes the balkanization of the country is the big fear. Anne, in Ottawa, you're on City News.
You know, it's really tough to follow both you and Joanne. I agreed with everything you both said. I find it absolutely frightening what this idiot is doing to this country. And I have to make a comment. It was so refreshing to hear a Trudeau actually speak eloquently without any speaking notes or anything. And I don't think I heard him say one this is crazy.
Yeah.
Why any Anglo would vote for this guy who just wants to give Quebec everything they want, would vote for him. I don't understand it. You really are crazy. Because, seriously, I feel now...
Well, maybe they're looking for a lunatic,
No,
just maybe a lunatic they're looking for.
I just want Quebec to go. Bye. You don't like us.
Okay.
You don't want to be part of us. Go.
Well, that's not what I want. I want to live in a united Canada.
Yeah, but you know what? You're never going to get it. Not with this guy in charge. If he gets 4 more years, oh boy. You just wait to see what's going to happen to this country. I think it's absolutely frightening. The unity of this country has never been in so much jeopardy before this guy. And what did they always say about Stephen Trudeau and his secret agenda? What is this but a...
Stephen Harper, yeah.
Sorry, Stephen Harper. What is this but a secret agenda?
The hidden agenda. The hidden agenda,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, my God. It's so
soldiers in the streets.
And it's arrogant and sneaky, just like Joanne said, too.
All right.
It's like to be doing this now. It's like, it's unconscionable. I really, I have no words.
Gotcha, Ann. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Okay. Pearl in Kempville. There's an old voice that I haven't heard in a long time. My goodness gracious.
Good morning, Rob.
But we're talking about Trudeau, and I know you're not a fan of this one, and you weren't a fan of the last one, as I recall. Here we go again.
I didn't trust Pierre Trudeau.
I know.
And I know that he pulled the wool right over English Canada's eyes, and he knew he could do it. And his son is finishing it. And after Pierre, we had Jean Chrétien, who was his best friend, and then we had Paul Martin. And do you know, and I don't know if the people of Canada know, Quebec never signed the Constitution.
They've never recognized
and Pierre
it.
Trudeau
That's right.
knew it.
Yeah.
So just think about it.
Okay. Well, now, Quebec wants to change our constitution for us. It's quite something.
This son will probably let them do it. The son of Pierre Trudeau, who started the whole thing. Everybody thinks he was wonderful, but he pulled the wool right over English Canada's eyes. Big time.
Thank you, Pearl. Thank you. I hope you're well in Kempville. You're okay these days. Okay, she hung up on me. She always does that. She used to do that to Lowell, too. Okay. Now, Stephen Harper in 2006 had a motion, one of his finest moments as prime minister. The 2006 motion, and all the Federalist parties are on side. And it recognizes the Quebecois as a nation within. Now, this is a bit lengthy here. It's a couple of minutes long. I hope you have the staying power for it, okay? Stephen Harper is asked, why are you were opposed to distinct society, so why are you bringing forward this motion about the Quebecois as a nation within a united Canada, which is not what this is, which is not what Premier Legault is trying to do. Roll tape, David.
I also want to know why you voted against distinct society in '95, and now you're supporting the idea of Quebecers as a nation today.
Well, I think what's important here. My view. I wasn't secret about this in particular the last year since I became prime minister. I mean, my preference was the definition of Quebecers be left to the National Assembly, to the Quebec legislature. But it was the Bloc Québécois that ultimately insisted that the Parliament of Canada make this decision. And it was the Bloc Québécois that came forward with a resolution that, while flawed, had some important elements to it. First of all, it didn't ask for anything for Quebec, which is a legal jurisdiction. What it asked was a recognition of the Québécois, which are a group of people, a sociological, a cultural group. And obviously, that made it much easier to deal with. But, we insist if we're going to have a recognition of Quebec Nation, and I say again, and I know that some people in the rest of Canada will have some difficulty with this, but I repeat that, the Québécois are a group of people with a language, a culture, a history, and identity. And according to the dictionary definition, that constitutes, in cultural, sociological terms, a nation. And our fathers of Confederation used this kind of terminology quite regularly. If you look back at what Johnny MacDonald said, Georges-Étienne Cartier, they said similar things at the time. So I think the motion we've put forward that obviously recognizes the full reality of the Quebec nationhood, not just that Quebec is a nation, but it's a nation within Canada, inextricably linked
within Canada,
through its history, through its role in the country today, and through the future we share together. Inextricably linked to this country, we believe this is an important act, both an act of recognition
linked, he says,
and an act of reconciliation. And Quebecers, I think, wrongly, but nevertheless really, often got the impression in the past generation that the rest of the country was not prepared to recognize who they were. And this has given us an opportunity to clarify that, and I believe ultimately to reconcile the debate we've had in this country, where we can say that we recognize Quebecers for who they are, but not just for who they are, but for the important role they play in this country. I think this is, when Canadians reflect on it, when they see the reaction in Quebec, I think there'll be a comfort level with it. This is not, as I said before in French, not a constitutional amendment, not a legal text. This is merely a declaration of recognition and an act of reconciliation. And I think it's important for the country, and it's apparently so good for the country that the Bloc Québécois wants to jump on the bandwagon now. This is their, as I said earlier, their third position in 3 days on the issue. And I think now they have to explain what their raison d'etre is in Ottawa if they're going to pass a resolution put forward by the Prime Minister that endorses the unity of Canada.
That could have been the end of it. But he says a few things there, okay? Inextricably linked to Canada, within a united Canada. Which is not what this is. That's the distinction, okay? And it's important that you appreciate that. Sharon, good morning. Yes. You're on City News.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks, Rob, for bringing this topic up. Why I'm calling is I have a reply to Trudeau's comment about him being a Quebecer first and then a Canadian. Well, I'm a descendant of Louis Joseph Papineau and damn proud of it, but I am a Canadian before I'm a Quebecer, and guess what? All of my family lives in Ottawa, hundreds of them, and we are Canadian. We're not just Quebecers.
Okay.
And that's about all I have to say.
Well, thank you, Sharon. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, good. We're going to have just nations unilaterally changing the language of the Constitution, and we're not. You don't think that's playing with fire? Every time. That's not the history of this file, folks. These are not games. You're opening up the Canadian Constitution, you're opening up a can of worms. And it's so possible now because we have such weak leadership federally on this whole issue, on the Quebec issue. And we have a hugely popular Quebec premier making his big power move. They're weak in Ottawa, all of them, on federalism. I have nothing good to say about any of them when it comes to pushing back against nationalist sentiment in Quebec City. They just roll over. Bill in Ottawa. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, sir.
I have to agree with Pearl there.
Yeah.
But I think this is just a surreptitious way of declaring Quebec as a sovereign nation. And so I think if he's allowed...
Well, what would be left? What would be left? Okay.
It'll be unraveling everything.
Well, I mean, it's just pragmatically speaking, what's left?
Exactly.
If you okay, you have declared this is our language. It's the only language we will recognize officially in the province of Quebec. This is our culture. It's a Quebecois culture, and we're a nation. Okay? We control our own immigration in the province of Quebec, right? We have massive control over the direction of education in the province of Quebec. We're not even going to allow Francophones to attend English schools out of fear of assimilation. This is how far it will go. This is the kind of these are the kinds of things that they used to blow up mailboxes for in Quebec, sir.
Well, that, and soon they'll declare they need an army, and
sure.
Army, and it'll be the unraveling. But we've been under this delusion ever since repatriation. There never was anything to repatriate from the British. When you think about it, the British North America Act was a British statute and still is, and there was never anything owed to Canada to repatriate.
Okay.
And people bought that delusion and allowed him to rewrite the Constitution as he saw it, as he wanted it. And we've been toying around with dissolving the country ever since.
Well, it's just you've got to give it to Legault. I mean, he's making his power move here.
Yes,
he sees what he's up against right now. I think he's taken the measure of the men, and
his own circumstance. I mean, he probably can't win a referendum in Quebec, so why fight one?
Well, why would he need to? This is my point. What is Quebec now, other than a sovereign nation that I guess grants people in the rest of Canada passport-free travel through its territory? Sometimes when there's not a pandemic on. Bill, thank you. Gotta go. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. There's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. Then customer service. We're big on that. The cashiers, the deli. You're not. If you ask for something, they're not going to point. It's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there. Okay. If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers, and we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, can you try getting me this? Can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now, okay? So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, from like all over the world. And we source it through, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. It's nothing really complicated about that. We turn over a lot of product. We package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You're always going to buy, Cuddy turkey breast, Saint Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, you know, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. You know, your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, you know, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. You know, takes, you know, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
Back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
About the only positive thing I could see coming out of this whole thing is, you know, best case scenario, it shuts up the separatists once and for all. It shuts them up once and for all. Oh, okay, you're a nation, okay? And French is your language. Got it, good. And it's in the Canadian Constitution. Fine and dandy. What more do you want? Right? That's the perfect scenario. That's the perfect world. You'd like to think that'd be the end of it, and national unity would be the better for it. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a deeply flawed world. We live in Canada. Maybe we live within many nations within Canada. I don't see what's stopping other provinces from moving to unilaterally change the language of the Canadian Constitution if they feel it's not working for them or doesn't suit their purposes. But you see, we have we're supposed to have an amending formula for the Constitution, you know, for big things. You want to change the Constitution in a way that affects the country? Here's what you need to do. You need to pass it through the House of Commons. You need to pass it through the Senate. You need the blessing of the legislatures of 7 provinces that represent 50% of the population. Does this escape people? You want to change the Constitution in radical ways? Trudeau says, Trudeau says, Trudeau says, Trudeau says Quebec can do this all by itself. Professor Emmett McFarland out of the University of Waterloo, expert in all things constitutional, had a column in Policy Options this week that said, I don't think so. Despite what Mr. Trudeau says, Premier Legault might think so, the Prime Minister might think so, he doesn't think so. It is like the brush is dry and parched, and Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Legault, they're standing over it, and one is holding the match and the other is holding a can of gasoline. And those of you of a certain vintage, you remember how this all played out in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't a good time for national unity. We came this close to losing the country over stuff like this. À la prochaine. Is this la prochaine? Here we go again, je me souviens. Steve, Ottawa. Good morning, Steve. You're on City News.
Good morning. I lived in Quebec when the FLQ were there.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to high school. I remember the terror. 800 bombs. Bombed McGill University. Killed a Canadian sergeant down there. Terrorized people in Quebec, all English people. I lived in Pointe Claire. I'll never forget that as long as I'm alive.
Sure.
And I'll never forget 2 referendums in our country. You know what it is? They can't get over, the French in Quebec can't get over, they lost the war in the 1730s from the British and the Iroquois nation. They made them surrender up in Quebec City. And the French in Quebec can't get over the fact they lost the war. So now they want their own country now, and they're using Justin Trudeau to do it.
That's what you think is happening, sir?
That's exactly what's happening.
That's what's happening.
And they just don't stop.
Well, I just think they're opening up a can of worms, and I think Mr. Trudeau is, I don't know if he's purposely naive and maybe not realizing the gravity of the situation here. David, downtown. Good morning, David.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, David.
This whole thing just implodes your mind with all possibilities. And
yes, absolutely, yeah.
I wanted to touch on what the bill a couple of callers ago. Is this basically just sovereignty, association, separation without the benefit of a referendum. Is this sort of what?
What more is there to accomplish?
Well, yeah, and
right.
I'm looking at it as what are they going to be getting that they don't already have out of this?
Well, they will have recognition that they are a nation, but not with the caveat within a united Canada. That will be in the Canadian Constitution. And in the Canadian Constitution, we're unilingual. French unilingual.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And is there anything
in the Canadian Constitution, sir?
Okay.
Right.
And is there anything, if Quebec can freely do this, is there...
Now, maybe that doesn't change daily life in Quebec whatsoever.
That's what I'm...
But it's certainly... I think it has...
legal ramifications. I'm wondering if there's...
Well, legal ramifications, the societal ramifications in the rest of Canada. You think about, we played the Pierre Elliott Trudeau clip, special powers for Quebec. Why do politicians want special powers? Because they're in the power game, he says. Right?
Exactly.
So if we want special recognition of Quebec, what's stopping other premiers from wanting special treatment as well and special protections for their people as well? This is what derailed things like Meech and Charlottetown with Clyde Wells and Elijah Harper. And what happens is it can spiral out of control. Quebec becomes angry. Lucien Bouchard turns his back on the Mulroney government. Okay? Next thing you know, we're having a referendum and we come within a point of losing the country.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was going to be my second point. Is there anything to stop, say, other provinces from saying we want to be all English or we want to be recognized as
Good
this?
question.
And the West. I mean, this is going to really trigger the West.
Yes, sir, you're onto it. Yes.
Do we still want to send our big transfer payments to this nation now? This nation doesn't appear to even be part of Canada. Why are we sending money to something that doesn't even feel like Canada anymore? We might as well be sending it to Minnesota or wherever.
Okay. All right, David. I don't know. Trudeau and Legault, maybe they're actually political geniuses and they think they can just let this one little genie out of the bottle. And one little wish will be granted. Quebec is in once and for all our constitutional framework because it's a nation and French is its language, and that's the end of it, right? And it's all settled. That's not the history. What happens when you don't learn from history? Well, you're doomed to repeat it. And that's it for the Talkback Hour on the Rob Snow Show. We can get back into it tomorrow, folks. We've been talking about that particular angle of that particular issue for the better part of 3 decades. There's no reason we can't talk about it tomorrow on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
WW1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, May 19th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 23 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Well, breaking news from the province. The 3.5-year time to catch up on postponed surgeries begins now. Ontario hospitals have been given permission to resume non-urgent surgeries and procedures as the number of COVID-19 infections slowly declines. Province's top doctor says in a memo he is rescinding the emergency order issued on April 20th that told hospitals to temporarily cease procedures amid an onslaught of cases. Last week, Ontario's fiscal watchdog said it would take the province about 3.5 years just to clear the surgical backlog from the COVID-19 pandemic. There have been 19 more deaths in Ontario in the past day from COVID-19. The province's latest numbers show 1,588 new cases of COVID province-wide. 105 of the cases are in Ottawa, 14 are in Eastern Ontario. There are 4 more cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 5 more in Renfrew. Positive cases come from just over 38,400 tests performed, with a positivity rate of 5.2%. Free COVID-19 rapid tests will be distributed in the city next Wednesday. The Ottawa Board of Trade says it's taking part in a provincial plan distributing these tests to small and medium-sized businesses at no cost to them. The tests available at Invest Ottawa headquarters in Bayview Yards. Larger businesses get their supply directly from the province. The Board of Trade President and CEO Su-Ling Ching says these will help provide twice-weekly screening for employees and help in the rebound and recovery of Ottawa businesses. Ottawa Board of Trade will be distributing the kits to any employer with fewer than 150 workers. City News Time 11:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Plenty of sunshine for us, a high near 30 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy 17, and tomorrow, clouds thicken, do have a slight chance of showers or an isolated thunderstorm, the high 28. For today, the high 30.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 23 degrees. The lawyer for Carleton sociology professor Hassan Diab urging the Prime Minister to intervene. A French court has ordered his client stand trial again in the 1980 bombing of a Paris synagogue. Donald Bain is also considering an appeal to the European Court of Human Rights. Diab was arrested in November 2008 at the request of France and eventually extradited. He spent 3 years behind bars there, including time in solitary, before allegations were dismissed. In January, he was ordered released, but that was overturned. He has now been ordered to stand trial once again. The annual pace of inflation rose to its highest level in nearly a decade in April. Gasoline prices shot up a record 62.5% from the same month last year. StatsCan reports inflation rose 3.4% last month, up from 2.2%. Now in our region, the rate went up 4.1%. April's reading was the highest since May of 2011. There is growing pressure now for a ceasefire to end the violence between Israelis and Palestinians.
Hamas says it is open to a ceasefire with Israel, demanding some conditions related to Jerusalem. But Israel's prime minister rejecting any ceasefire talks or even giving a timetable for them. Benjamin Netanyahu telling foreign diplomats, quote, "We're not holding a stopwatch. We're focused on the operation's objectives." The IDF bombing overnight dozens of Hamas military targets. The death toll in Gaza now over 200, including 63 children. Here in Israel, Hamas rocket fire began at 5 a.m. local time and has not stopped. Jordana Miller, ABC News, Jerusalem.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
Oh, the best man in Ottawa was Mafara Joe. Big Joe Mafara paddled into Mattawa all the way from Ottawa in just one day. Hey, on the river Ottawa, the best man we ever saw was Big Joe Mafara, the old folks say. Come and listen and I'll tell you what the old folks say. Big Joe had an old pet frog, bigger than a horse, and he barked like a dog. And the only thing quicker than a train upon a track was Big Joe riding on the bullfrog's back. Heave hi, ho, the best man in Ottawa was Mufferaw Joe. Mufferaw Joe.
Time for Valley View. Bruce McIntyre is back, Eganville leader, also contributor to Ottawa.citynews.ca. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well.
You're well? That's good. That's good. You're enjoying the heat wave. The heat wave spreading across all of the Ottawa Valley, I'm sure.
And into the city of Ottawa. I'm actually in Ottawa this morning.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I'm going home as soon as we're done here on their little chat.
And how long a drive is that these days?
Well, going home this time of day will take me about, I'm near Carling and Woodruff, take me about 45 minutes.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Easier because the traffic is lighter, right? Do you notice that the traffic is lighter these days?
It's lighter, and I want to get my driving done before Thursday night. Friday morning rolls around, long weekend.
Yeah, this is something, of course, that we've talked about in the past, and Bruce is familiar, with that commute because Bruce used to live in Renfrew and work on Parliament Hill, right?
Yeah.
And that would take you, what did you say, 90 minutes? 90 minutes?
It depends. If I would leave at 6 a.m. in the morning, and if I didn't get past Bay Shore at a certain time, back then it was about 6:40.
6:40, yeah. It's probably earlier now, I bet.
Yeah, it would take me a good hour and 20 minutes to get to work. If I had no issues, I'd be there in an hour and 5 minutes.
Right, and if there's one accident in one lane, all bets are off, right?
Yeah, there's one rubbernecker just causes a whole lot of problems.
Right, okay, yeah. I do wonder with the, just work from home, and we know that the real estate market, for example, in Renfrew, Arnprior, all of those valley communities, has been red hot. I wonder what that's going to mean for that drive for valley people into the city when things do eventually return to whatever the normal is going to be.
I think, Rob, the two words you use there are incorrect put together. Ottawa Valley and normal. No such thing. So,
okay. Yeah.
We are a unique brand. Actually, one piece of news I didn't get it sent down to you and Dave was something that came in last night. I didn't get a chance to do it. Our Crown Attorney, Mr. Richardson, who has led the way in several high-profile cases in the county, prosecuted Basil Bluesky, was involved with a Christine Nass's trial. He is now Justice Richardson.
Oh.
He's been going to the bench.
Going to be a judge.
He's going to be a judge, and he's going to be in Pembroke. So all the bad boys and girls he tried to prosecute, he was unsuccessful. They may be back in front of him as a judge.
Wow.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
I wonder how that works. And you spoke about him just last week when you were on the program. We were talking about the Ann Cenac trial, right? Because he was involved with that one, right? So
he negotiated the terms for the peace bond agreement between the two parties for her 10-year common law agreement. So, I'm going to miss Jeffrey, because he's an excellent Crown attorney, and he kept me up to speed on what was going on. Very good that way. I mean, he didn't tell me the inside scoop, but he would say, you know what, here's a case coming up. I think it'll be of interest to you. I think you'll want to be involved with this. So I'm gonna miss those little chats we had. Usually once every 2 weeks we'd chat on the phone and just see what's going on.
Okay. So what's the big story for the Eganville leader? What are you chasing these days?
What am I chasing? It was a pretty quiet week. We had a couple of unique stories come out of Renfrew. Nice feel-good stories. One was at the hospice, our little jewel. If anyone ever comes to Renfrew County and wants to find an incredibly community-run hospice, that is the one. And it's a neat little story we had. They raised $15,000 selling chicken fingers at a nearby drive-through restaurant.
Wow.
I don't know if
That's a lot of chicken fingers.
That's a lot of chicken fingers. 1,495 chicken dinner meals were sold in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it was a fundraiser. A gentleman and his wife, Lori and Kevin Koulis, her father spent her last days in hospice, so they wanted to raise money for hospice, so they donated $10 for every meal that was sold for 2 weeks at Odie's. And the nice little hook there is she worked there as a teenager 40-some-odd years ago. She was flipping burgers and making the chicken fingers, and this young gentleman used to come by and order chicken fingers from her all the time, and he wasn't just there for the fingers. That gentleman was her future husband, Kevin. So they wanted to incorporate both hospice and Odie's. And if anyone has ever gone to Odie's, King Burger in Renfrew, it is quite the experience, because when you go to the drive-thru, they have this speaker, this megaphone that sticks out at you, and you place your order, and they answer back. That's what it sounds like.
Odie's.
So that's a nice little good news story, 15,000. And we have a new committee in Renfrew, as a world into the committee, but they want to save our caboose.
Oh, okay. Tell me a little bit about that. That's curious.
It's nice. We had this beautiful, well, not beautiful, sorry. We have a yellow CPR caboose in Howie Haramis Park. When you come into Renfrew, it's our local park and ride.
Sure. I think I've seen that caboose now that I...
It was brought in 1993 by the late mayor, Howie Haramis. And Howie could make a deal. He could make Monty Hall blush. He could make a deal with anyone.
Okay.
He was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he got this caboose brought in as a recognition of Renfrew's heritage and the ties to the railways past.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's fallen on hard times and has not been maintained. And they want to the town council thinks it's time to remove the caboose off the property and get it out of eyesight, either sell
Time for the caboose to vamoose. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
So the director of recreation came in with a report. It'll cost over $600,000.
What?
Yeah. You know, when I see those reports,
$600,000 to do what to the caboose?
Oh, they want to sandblast it.
Oh my God.
They want to put a new roof in. I'm not sure they want to put a cocktail bar in there or not.
Is it going to be? It's going to be like the Trump caboose, like with a gold furnishings in it, or what?
Well, that's what the committee member said. What?
$600,000 for the Renfrew caboose? You've got to be kidding me.
Barry Beans said, "Give me $1,000, 10 volunteers, face of beer. I'll get it done in the weekend."
Yeah, bet you probably.
So,
oh my gosh almighty. Oh my gosh.
So they're trying to convince the town council, like, let's roll it back a bit. We have volunteers. We can do it. Like,
sure,
Don't spend more than $500,000 on a caboose.
$600,000 to refurbish a caboose. My goodness gracious.
So it'll be the top-notch caboose in all of Canada, I think. But we'll wait and see. Council, I mean, when you see that kind of report brought in, I'm not sure about you, Rob, but when I see that, that's a report that says they don't want that caboose anymore. That's what tells me that.
No, it would cost $600,000. You can't afford that, right? Yeah. Let's just get rid of the caboose.
So anyway, that's the kind of cute little stories coming out of the valley, and
and a smelly situation for Whitewater, but
we've always had problems with Muskrat Lake. There's always been issues with the water coming out of that lake being blamed, rightly or wrongly, for sewage problems down the line. Somewhere, perhaps Admiston, Horton, this bad water showing up. So it is a common practice. It is a practice to spread raw sewage on the fields as a form of fertilizer or just to get rid of it. There are conditions that have to be met, though. But recently there's been a couple of families that live nearby where sewage was being spread, and their well was completely contaminated with E. coli, and they were quite ill. And they link it back to the sewage being spread. So another committee has sprung up to try and deal with this, to try and figure out where they can spread the sewage, how can it spread in a more safe manner, and just trying to come to. I know when I first moved to Renfrew County back in the mid-2000s, early 2000s, there was a push to stop the spreading of sewage of all kind, and the Ministry of Environment brought in these number of regulations to try to deal with the spreading of raw sewage, and the problems seemed to go away or just quietly left the front pages for a while, but now it appears to be coming back as people are much more conscious of the environment, much more conscious of the dangers of septage and spreading of sewage. So we'll have to see how that plays out, and it's mainly concentrated around the Beachburg area, down in La Paz, Beachburg, near the Ottawa River, and there are, I can't confirm where it's taking place, but there are some Mennonite homesteads down there, and I think it was one of the Mennonite homesteads that got ill from the water. I don't know.
Okay.
So whether it's COVID or E. coli, we're fighting off the diseases in Renfrew County.
Yeah. How is the COVID situation there this week?
Well, we had our 8th fatality, unfortunately.
Oh, no. Okay.
Again, no details are given, but we did have an individual on a ventilator down here at Ottawa. So I don't know whether it was that individual or not, but our thoughts go to the family and the friends, and the biggest challenge we have is workplace outbreaks. Dr. Cushman, our acting director of public health, is getting a little cranky. He actually got his cranky look on last week. Not so much the outbreaks are going to happen, but the lack of cooperation from the individuals who have been tainted by the COVID, whether they have shown symptoms or not. I guess they haven't been too receptive to the health unit coming in trying to do the tracing. And I know at Arnprior Aerospace alone, there was 40 people directly linked to the outbreak there a couple weeks ago. So the numbers are, we had 45 new cases last week, which is very, very, very high for us.
Okay.
So Dr. Cushman said it's an issue of complacency.
Yeah.
People are letting their guard down. Like, he looked out the window. This is the health unit. He looked out the window at a workplace, and he could see 6 people sitting around a picnic table eating with their masks on.
Oh, that must drive him crazy.
Oh, he must have just had a... Can you imagine looking down as the director of health, seeing that? He's like, what am I going to do? He throws his hands up. Yeah. He says he's just hoping people can continue going on until the June 2nd date of the tentative date for the lockdown will be discontinued. He's in full agreement with the Premier of keeping the lockdown in place until the 2nd of June. He has no issue with that at all. He thinks, the numbers continue to come down. Hopefully that'll continue. Our rates for vaccination are very high in a good way. Our seniors over the age of 65, almost 85%. Are fully vaccinated. The numbers between up to 85 are good. Over 60% of our people eligible are vaccinated, and now we're just waiting for the next batch of vaccines to come in to continue the trend. So we started off slow, but as he predicted, that's why I guess he's the big chair up there. He was right. He said by late May, early June, we'll be looking at a 60 to 65% rate of people having at least one vaccination.
Okay. So Bruce, let me ask you, because it's been... 2 years, I guess, coming up on 2 years since I've actually driven up to the Renfrew area. And you drove in because, hey, you're not allowed to leave your region, right? So,
that's right. Good for you, Rob.
Now,
good for you.
When you come into the city and go home again, are you seeing a lot of construction on the highway? What's going on? Anything going on?
In Renfrew County?
Yeah.
We have, the town of Renfrew has a crane.
No, but like on 17 or anything like that? Is there anything happening, or what's going on?
There is some new construction going on. Nothing major. They're doing the site planning, and the surveyors are doing along 17, getting ready for the next phase of the twinning. There's been a lot of activity on the sides of the highway. I've seen them quite often doing some work. There was a large culvert put in near the Calabogie Road 17 exit or entrance. That was just recently installed to get ready for the upgrades. But as far as actual construction goes between Renfrew, Arnprior, and the city of Ottawa, no, there isn't actually physical construction going on the highway itself. But again, a lot of the surveying, I can see them taking place. I see them every day out there, the vans on the side of the road. I'll see the surveying equipment going on. So that is definitely taking place.
Okay.
So, but in Renfrew, we have a lot of construction. Our main artery, Highway 60, is torn up. So if you are ever going up through Renfrew, Highway 60, prepare for a wait. You're looking at I had a 12-minute wait last week.
12 minutes? My gosh, what did you do in all that time?
I was debating whether to get out and have a suntan or not. So.
Okay. I guess it pays to have a big-time cabinet minister. It's good to have a big-time cabinet minister, provincial cabinet minister, as your MPP, maybe. Okay.
He was a former Minister of Transportation. Now he's Natural Resources, which is a natural fit for him. And but it is for Renfrew. Like, we have one bridge in the town, and of course the construction begins at that bridge. So there's 2 ways into the town, and the one main artery is that bridge, and that is where the holdup is. And that's where I stuck for 12 minutes last week. And I was borderline cranky, but I was patient. And they got a job to do, and they always get giggles when I go by Clancy in the back seat hanging out. And they always, when I stop there, the construction workers always have a chat with Clancy. They don't bring him treats, so I'll have to work on that.
Talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep.
Enjoy the long weekend.
I will indeed. From the Eganville Leader, reporting from the Ottawa Bureau today of the Eganville Leader, Bruce McIntyre. Be right back. We're going to talk about the biggest jump in inflation in a decade. All about gas prices, and as long as you don't drive, and as long as you don't eat, and as long as you don't live in a house, well, you don't need to worry about inflation. Saul Guatieri from the BMO Economics Department joins me next here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley, Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it. What we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
A lot of people waiting for this, who watch markets, who watch economics, the inflation rate, the consumer price index, the CPI, released this morning by Statistics Canada. It's very much looking in a rearview mirror. After all, here we are. It is May 19th. This is an April number, but nevertheless, big number, 3.4% increase on a year-over-year basis, April to April, and it's all about the price of gas. Sal Guatieri is here from BMO Economics. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
What did you think of the number, sir?
Yeah, it was a little worse than many expected. So we now have the highest CPI inflation rate in a decade in Canada. As you mentioned, a good chunk of that relates to gas prices, up 63% in the past year. Hopefully they'll cool down now that oil prices seem to be stabilizing a bit. But the other part here is some base effects. We know prices fell during the shutdowns a year ago, so that kind of boosts the year-over-year rate. When you look outside, some other areas, we're not seeing yet a broad increase in prices. Food costs are up only 0.9% in the past year, so we're getting some big help from the strong loonie here, especially in helping to reduce vegetable prices. Clothing and services prices up only modestly in the past year, so those are good signs. But we do know, the Bank Canada looks at 3 core measures or underlying measures of inflation, and they have picked up. They're now averaging 2.1%, which is the highest in about 12 years. So, something's starting to brew under the surface.
Okay, so what does it mean for interest rates? I mean, that's the big question, because historically speaking, the way to fight inflation, if this is a concerning number at all, the way to combat it traditionally has been to raise interest rates, something the Bank of Canada has not yet signals that is in any hurry to do. So what does a number like this do for the interest rate environment, in your opinion?
Yeah, this number won't change too much for the Bank of Canada. Might raise the heat a little bit, but the bank, much like the Federal Reserve, believes that most of what we are likely to see over the next few months, reinflation, is expected to be transitory, temporary. The commodity price run up that'll feed through for the next few months as well. Some supply disruptions relating to the pandemic, which should ease over time. The bet here is that these pressures are transitory, and if that's the case, then inflation will start to come down a bit. We're not so sure, though. We are getting increasingly worried about the inflation outlook. Yeah. We do have Canadian inflation now averaging close to 3% both this year and next year, and that assumes that commodity prices do back off from their current highs now. So, we think the risks for inflation are on the upside, especially when the economy, comes roaring back when it reopens, much like the U.S. economy is doing right now. We know that's what will happen to Canada in the summer and the second half of this year. So, and with policymakers still, pressing on the gas, it's going to make things really interesting, I think, for the Bank of Canada and the Fed. Right now, we think the bank could hold off on raising rates until early 2023. But the risks, if we do see inflation pressures building and the economy roaring back, is that the bank will need to move earlier than 2023.
Yeah, this is a very popular word now for economists, transitory. You have a language all your own, you economists, Sal. I must say, transitory means temporary. Why economists don't just say temporary? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole. That's the big question now.
Right, but is it temporary, or is this going to be a longer term thing? This stronger inflation, because that's something that we haven't had in a long time. In an environment where you actually have to pay attention to the rate of inflation.
Yeah, that's the big question now for policymakers, economists, everyone. I mean, businesses and consumers who ultimately have to pay these higher prices. Is the run-up in inflation temporary, or, is this going to be a little more sustained, and we're going to see a continued upward drift over the next couple of years as the economy strengthens and unemployment rates fall? The two things to keep an eye on here are wages. Okay. We're not seeing a whole lot of pressure, even in the U.S. now, where there are reports of labor shortages. But if wage costs start to pick up because people want to be compensated for the higher prices, then we will see kind of that wage price spiral forming. The other thing is inflation expectations. If people expect higher inflation, they'll start bargaining for higher wages, and that will fuel wage price spiral as well. So those are the two things to keep an eye on. The evidence so far suggests, the pop we're seeing in inflation will be largely temporary. But if wage growth picks up and inflation expectations continue to drift higher, that won't be the case.
Yeah. Plus housing, right? The housing market. You would think that the Bank of Canada, that's another tool that it has, and maybe the most effective tool if it is actually worried about kind of this runaway housing market that's in place. Right?
Yeah, the runaway house price, especially in Canada, but we're also seeing this in the U.S. as well, many other countries, is starting to feed into CPI measures. Very, very, partly because only a fraction of it does show up, largely in homeowner replacement costs. But they're up now 9% in Canada for the CPI. So, that's starting to pressure the CPI higher as well. Now, what's working the other way is that mortgage costs are still relatively low, and rents haven't been rising very much as well because people have shifted into ownership. So, I would think over the next year, if house prices continue to gallop forward, we will see increasing pressure from the housing market on inflation measures, and the Bank of Canada may not be able to delay rate hikes much longer.
Thank you for your time today.
Okay, you're welcome, Rob.
Yep, from the Economics Department of the Bank of Montreal, that's Guatieri. Councillor Eli El-Chantiry is my guest right after the news on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, the 19th of May. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, we've got sunshine and 24 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Ontario's top doctor is lifting a month-old emergency order and giving hospitals permission to resume non-urgent surgeries and procedures. The announcement from Dr. David Williams comes as daily COVID rates and hospitalizations and intensive care admissions appear to be trending downward in this province. Last week, Ontario's fiscal watchdog said it would take about 3.5 years to clear the surgical backlog. Provincial health officials report 105 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa out of 1,588 new cases across Ontario. 19 more people in this province have died from the virus. Today's numbers out of over 38,000 tests with a test positivity rate of 5.2%. Elsewhere locally, Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit confirmed 6 new cases, 4 in the last 24 hours, while the province is reporting 5 new cases in Renfrew and 14 new cases of COVID-19 in Eastern Ontario. Small businesses in Ottawa will be able to access free rapid COVID test kits starting next week. The Ottawa Board of Trade will start handing out the kits next Wednesday at Invest Ottawa's headquarters at Bayview Yards. The program will allow businesses to provide twice-weekly screening. The rapid test rollout is part of the province's plan to get over 760,000 test kits to small and medium-sized businesses before Labor Day weekend. Tests are available through this program for businesses with 150 employees or fewer. Larger businesses get their tests directly from the province. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Welcoming to our program, City Councillor, West Carleton-March Ward, Eli El-Chantiry. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Great to hear from you, Councillor.
Thank you for having me.
Too long. A motion that you presented yesterday was endorsed by the FedCo committee.
Yes.
And it directs an investigation. It calls for an investigation into the leak of a confidential memo that revealed details about claims related to the Rideau Street sinkhole.
Correct.
Why do you think there should be an investigation? Perhaps even a police investigation?
Well, I mean, I use the term, the Integrity Commissioner should be able to use whatever needs to complete his investigation, because in the past, we read the Integrity Commissioner reports and many incidents where he used retired police officer or special investigators, some of them RCMP, some OPP, whatever. So, in my comment, I said he should be able to use whatever he needs, because and I know some folks trying to spin it. City Council is covering something or hiding something from the public. There's nothing hidden from the public. The public know we have, we have a sinkhole. It happened, and
hard to hide a sinkhole, Councillor.
That's right. And we talk about it enough. Actually, you're right. But the memo, it was not about we are we are going for lawsuit against the RTG. The memo was about the strategy. The legal team, who is paid for by the taxpayer, sent us this confidential memo telling us about the strategy to defend the city and recover taxpayers' dollars. That was released. And
you think you want to know, did that violate, for example, if the city is the client and it has its solicitor, did it violate privilege, the leak of that memo, right?
And also it'll violate the Section 5 of the Code of Conduct. And I mean, we took an oath, Rob, and every year we signed back this Code of Conduct. So every year, every councillor signed the Code of Conduct. We took oath to keep confidential information within, with our privilege, and that was violated. So again, we're not hiding, or nobody is trying to hide anything from everybody, including the media. We had a sinkhole, and the sinkhole cost the taxpayer.
Yeah, we know we had a sinkhole, but what we didn't know about was that there was a $360 million lawsuit about the sinkhole. We didn't know that.
Well, now
until it was in the media.
That's right, and that's unfortunate. But again, I'm hoping the Integrity Commissioner will get to the bottom of this, and it's not a lot of people know about this memo. This memo went only to members' council, the mayor, and senior.
Well, it's in the newspaper today. We went to at least 50 people.
Yeah, I mean, that's 50 people, but I mean, it is going to take some time. But what we heard on the committee, and many of my colleagues asked the question, what happened, why you're not investigating, and we find out from the city clerk, one councillor cannot ask for the Integrity Commission. It has to be a motion on council directing the Integrity Commissioner to open investigation, and that's what I did.
On the... Because my phone started blowing up yesterday about the Eli El-Chantiry wants the police to investigate. He wants to call the cops. Is that? I need you to clarify that for me.
That's not what in my. Well, if I can take 2 seconds to read what therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5, confidential information of the Code of Conduct for members of Council, the Finance and Economic Development Committee recommends City Council direct the Integrity Commissioner to undertake an investigation into the release of the above noted confidential memo and provide a report on this finding as soon as possible. That's what the therefore, and that's the important part, and that will be going to Council on May 26th, and I'm hoping my colleague will support my motion. Now, committee unanimously support the motion. Now it's going to go to council for vote on the 26th. But in my closing remark, I said the Integrity Commissioner should use whatever tool in his power, including police, if he need to get to the bottom of this. Because to me, this is a huge leak, and it might end up costing the taxpayer a lot of money, because right now, the strategy you have or your defense strategy been exposed. And that's the issue here. The issue is we need to, it's confidential, it's confidential. If you can't handle confidential,
Okay, then with an investigation of that nature, what authority does, this would be the ethics office, right, at City Hall, right? Well,
no,
so what?
Integrity Commissioner.
Integrity Commissioner, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, can they look at emails? Can they, look at, say, phones and devices and these sorts of things?
Yes, he has done before, and I don't want to bring any, but the Integrity Commissioner has the authority for all the above you mentioned, including recommending, and it's up to council to accept a penalty toward 90 days, remove your pay salary, and you continue to work, but with no pay for 90 days. That's the maximum the Integrity Commissioner imposed.
You could be suspended without pay for 90 days.
Correct.
Kind of like the Shirelli thing, right? Yeah, okay.
Without going there, yeah.
Right, yeah, okay. I mean, this was... It was reported by the media, right?
That's right.
The Citizen, the Sun, CBC. I mean, do you want to investigate the media?
That's not the issue. The issue, we don't have it with the media.
Are you going after reporters now? Or?
No, absolutely not. That's not the point, Rob. The point is not the media. I mean, if you're in the media, somebody gives you something, you have,
I'm going to report it.
Obligate to report it. That's not the issue here.
That's my job.
The issue here is, us as a council member and senior staff who took oath on protecting the taxpayer and the city confidentiality. That was breach. Do you really want that? As a taxpayer, do you want somebody leak something's going to cost the taxpayer in the millions of dollars?
No, but what I do want to know is when there is a lawsuit involving $361 million worth of taxpayer money about a major infrastructure project, I think that's in the public interest that taxpayers know that there's such litigation happening in the city.
again, Rob, it's not like the public and doesn't know it's going to be a lawsuit on this.
Right. And it would have been known hours later.
That's right.
Right. Okay. All right. I want to move along to other things. I think we've talked about that enough.
All right.
How did you vote yesterday on this Mark Motors business?
I vote in favor of our policy, and I think, Rob, if I can take 2 seconds.
Take all the time you need.
So we have a policy, all councillors unanimously supported to have a community improvement area, and we use that in Bellis Corner and the Holiday Inn in Bellis Corner use that funding. And another businesses as well, and San Joseph Boulevard and Montreal Road. So those areas, they qualify for community improvement fund. Now, whether you put luxury dealership or you put strip mall or you put a Holiday Inn, it doesn't matter. The policy allow you to apply for that funding, and it's available to do that. And the reason we're doing this as a council, we thought those areas, they need, like Bellis Corner, nothing happening in it, and we need to inject.
Right. It's about economic development, right?
Correct.
To try and encourage economic development.
It is economic development policy.
Okay.
And we voted for in 2019, and we were proud of that when we saw it happen in Bellis Corner and San Joseph, and this time it happened to be on the corner of Montreal Road. As you know, I've been in Ottawa long enough, and that corner's been the same in the last 46 years I've been in Ottawa. As a matter of fact, when I was 19, I used to go drink at the Maple Leaf Hotel, was at the corner there. So we know the area, and we know nothing happened to it.
Yeah.
So now, this property right now, they pay $35,000 property tax. Once they build their building, they'll be paying close to $500,000, if it's not more, in property tax.
Okay.
Even in the next 10 years, when they are taking that little break for community improvement, the city earn $1 million in those 10 years. That's not counting the property tax, $1 million, because right now it's going to, they will receive, or they got a tax break, and it is break, like you don't get the money from the city, so you just will leave that money with you for improvement. So instead of you paying the $500,000 property tax a year, we'll reduce it with the amount, so till you recover the 2.9, and that's in 10 years. But within those 10 years, the investor will recover their investment, and the city will make extra $1 million on it. So
right, but what do you say, Councillor, and this is not necessarily my opinion, but certainly I know you got an earful on this yesterday, you're subsidizing the elite who can afford fancy cars. What do you say about that?
Well, first of all, it's not about the dealership. If we have a Holiday Inn instead of the dealership, they would qualify for the same thing. So it's not the type of business going there. Is the policy allow you to be just like the brownfield? If Rob Snow go to the brownfield and apply for a tax break or a Minto, it doesn't matter. You qualify. This is a brownfield, and you qualify for that rebate.
All right, Councillor. Thank you. It's nice to hear your voice, and I'm glad you're doing well. Stay well, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye. West Carleton-March Ward Councillor Eli El-Chantiry with his take on city affairs. How about Sue Sherring from the Ottawa Sun and her take? That's coming up next on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, a record center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad, and the dad say, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. She's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there, and they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. Pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats that every day, Jesus Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said, everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had, the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll. So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hindenburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I go, oh, I'm not going to retire, but I've committed to changing what the store is about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gear's Rock Shop, where legends are dressed, and essentially get that message out. I prefer, if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics with clothing. It's amazing. You'll come in and go, oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this? So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make a gazillion dollars. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
More.
Pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Her column appears weekly in the Ottawa Sun. It's on city issues. And Sue Sherring is here to talk about all the big stories happening in our municipal government. Welcome back.
Why, thank you.
Well, Bob Chiarelli is kind of the man in the spotlight right now. It's like the year 2000 called. I want my news back, you know? He came on my show. We just called him and said, look, there are all kinds of rumors you're going to run for mayor. Will you come on the show? And sure enough, he came on and he laid it out there. I'm seriously thinking about it, even if Jim is in the race. So since then, there have been, all kinds of reaction. And now you've written about it, which makes it official.
I thank you. Well, I'm a bit embarrassed.
Did you talk to him? Or?
Oh, yeah, I talked to him. But, I mean, he's been telling me that for months. And I don't know why I didn't write it. I should have, but I just didn't believe it.
But now he's saying, well, I'm serious. And now he's talking about, and this is what I'm worried about. And this is what I would push in a campaign. And, he's starting to kind of fine tune his message. He's out there on social media more. His social media account was kind of silent there for a long time. And now he's tweeting about current events and community events.
Well, it was funny because right before you wrote it, his spouse, Randy Hansen, had retweeted something about him, and I thought, uh-oh, I think I might have been reading this wrong, because I don't think she would have done it just as a lark.
Right.
And I thought, uh-oh, and then your column came out. So, yes, I'm still not 100%, well, I don't know that he's sure either. I do find it hard to believe he's going to run.
Really? Okay.
But I think he's But I think the truth is he is giving it serious consideration, which I actually hadn't believed. So thank you for leading the charge on this.
Well, maybe he's trying to chase Jim out of the race.
Well,
that's what I've been thinking because...
Well, I hope that works.
Well, what I was thinking this morning as I was rereading your column this morning and getting ready for the show, and I was thinking... As Jim Watson, let's think about this together here, openly and on the air. Has Jim Watson ever lost an election that you can remember? Can you ever remember, and Jim reporting, for example, on election night, and Jim Watson loses 2? I don't remember ever in all my years covering Jim Watson as anything, from city councillor to mayor of the first city to MPP, cabinet minister. I don't think he's ever lost an election. Because he has a very good sense of timing about what way the winds are blowing and whether my time is up, whether I should move on, whether there's the possibility of, say, a better opportunity somewhere else, like leaving provincial politics and going to municipal politics. So maybe Bob is, and I'm just speculating, maybe Bob Shirelli is thinking, Jim can win when there's, say, 10 or 11 of us in, but if I can chase him out, then my chances are a lot better, kind of thing, you know?
But would Bob Shirley chase him out, though?
I'm just saying, if Jim feels even threatened, I don't know if he would run. Say you have a perfect electoral record, why not just go out on top? I'm the longest serving mayor in Ottawa's history. I've never been defeated in an election. I'm the king. I'm like the Wayne Gretzky of Ottawa municipal politics, you know?
I think he would feel very challenged. Challenged. Egotistically by someone like Bob Shirley taking him on. And so I'm not convinced he would drop out of fear that he might lose. Yeah. I think he would convince himself he could win.
I also think Jim Watson could beat Bob Shirley.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe rather handily.
Yes. I mean, it's always so hard to tell how the electorate is feeling. I think there's certainly, I'm on Twitter a lot. There are certainly people unhappy with Jim. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure that the great electorate is unhappy with him.
Yeah.
I still think he's got a good following.
And maybe Jim Watson is thinking, well, I welcome Bob Shirelli, and I welcome Diane Deans, and I welcome 15 other people.
Yes, and then
right.
win, for sure.
And I'll win with 25% of the vote or something like that, right?
Yes, I mean, I do have some sympathy for Diane Deans. She's always wanted to be mayor and obviously has been very careful in her timing.
Yeah.
And it may be that this isn't her timing yet. So it's going to be fun. I mean, as a municipal reporter, I'm excited about what's going to transpire. That's for sure. And I surely hope it just doesn't end up being Jim Watson and a bunch of people that no one knows, because that won't be so fun.
Well, for Bob Shirley, I thank him for making it interesting, right? Because usually at this point in time, it's everybody's like, hurry up and wait.
Yes. Well, I think he had to put his name out there and see what the reaction is, if he's really going to do this.
Yeah.
And I certainly hope that his age, he's 79, I hope that doesn't become an issue, because as I wrote in my column, he has way more energy than I do, and I'm a couple of decades younger.
I know.
So.
To look like him at his age, right?
Yeah.
So, but he's out there. I think, look, it's a big job to run for mayor, even if you're not running against Jim Watson. We had Walter Robinson on the program several weeks ago, and it's like $1 million campaign. You're talking about $1 million.
I don't think raising money will be hard for Bob Shirley.
Okay, maybe not, but you still have to raise it and find ways to spend it. And he's kind of test driving some messages here. He says he's worried about the debt. He questions all the money that's going into light rail. Traffic congestion and the state of the roads. Now, it'll be interesting. I wonder how that's going to resonate. Traffic congestion and the state of the roads as an election message in Ottawa is not kind of the message that you hear a lot from councillors at City Hall these days, where it's transit, bike lanes, active modes of transportation. Can you win an election in Ottawa running on traffic congestion and potholes? I don't know.
Well, when I ran way back when, those were two issues I would hear a lot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. And I mean, people out in Barrhaven often feel that we're neglected for a lot of things, and certainly the state of our roads was something I heard a lot at the door.
Right. Okay. So, a good suburban issue then. A good outside the Greenbelt kind of issue. So.
I absolutely agree. And
right. Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I would think those left-leaning would be on council would be far happier to support Bob Chiarelli than they would Jim Watson, given the way he sort of shut them out of any decision-making.
Well, I mean, gosh, Sue, you remember what it was like to cover some of those council meetings. Some of them were epic, lasted, for better or for worse. He let everyone have their say. We had Colin rules, for crying out loud, in effect, right? Because the soliloquies could go on, but, councillors like Bedard and Doucette and Legendre and people like that, they had a very powerful voice at City Hall. So
as they should.
And they, certainly they weren't bobbleheads, that's for sure. Okay. As you say in your column, 2022 is shaping up.
This program is brought to you by Ignite